either live and or being recorded by ECAT tonight. And first up, I just want to quickly welcome our new member, Robert Stetson, taking the place of Charlie. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And in 7 words or less, no, tell us why you're here. No, we can.
Happy to be here.
I think you already did that at the Board of Selectmen.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. All right, so first up, we have a public hearing for 287 Purchase Street. Special permit for an estate lot. And I believe Mr. Benson's going to read this in.
Town of Easton notice of public hearing in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 41, Section 81-T, Massachusetts General Law. The Easton Planning and Zoning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 13th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in the Mary Connolly Room, Easton Town Offices, 136 Elm Street, North Easton, Mass. On the application received from Morse Brothers, Inc. for a special permit under Easton Code Book Chapter 235, zoning, paragraph 235 through 43, estate lots to allow a creation of an estate lot at 287 Purchase Street, Assessor's Map 46U, Lot 13. A copy of the application and plan may be inspected at the Planning and Economic Development Office, 136 Elm Street, Northeastern, Mass, during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed application and plan should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. Gregory Strange, Chair, April 26, 2019, and May 3rd, 2019.
Thank you, Wayne. So just before we start, so I just had a question. I understand creating the estate lot, but so lots A and B are new also.
Mm-hmm.
So are they gonna, why, so wouldn't we A and R those first? Or I'm confused by the process, I guess, a little bit.
So, this was confusing. And maybe
Or are we
why don't we have the engineer?
Okay.
who's
Or are we
here?
just, are we not dealing with lots A and B
I
tonight? So
think we're just dealing with the estate.
Mr. Chair, for the
lot.
record, my name is Bob Rogers,
Sure.
GAF Engineering, representing Morse Brothers tonight. The plan, it's a two-sheet, basically it's a two-sheet Form A plan, and we need a special permit for what would normally be the remaining land. So we have Lot A and Lot B are gonna be single-family house lots, and the remaining Lot 13 is, we're requesting a special permit for the estate lot. We filed in April, we had an administrative review, and so just this evening, I submitted revised plans and a cover letter explaining that we have made the corrections that were requested. So once the board is comfortable granting the special permit for the estate lot, we'd go through, wait for the appeal period, and then the board would endorse it after the appeal period as a A&R plan.
Okay. Which is fine, but I'm just thinking, we've never created A&R, separate A&R lots under a special permit. Can we do that? Or what, if this, let's say this is approved today for the estate lot.
This
we
is
do it-
confusing because the A&R, they did submit an A&R application and pulled it and withdrew it.
We did as we were directed. I'm not the project manager on this job. Tonight's public hearing is for the special permit to approve the estate lot.
Yeah.
And, but it's basically an A&R plan. So
Right, hence my confusion.
So, well, I think it simplifies things. You know, if we would have two plans otherwise. And in this case, you know, we have one plan, and you just can't endorse it as an A&R plan until the appeals period is over for the special permit for the estate lot.
Yeah, I'm just kind of backwards, I guess.
I think it,
Compared to how we normally do it, so. I mean, because an estate lot is to create something to build on.
well,
And this is not a
normally,
buildable lot, correct?
Well, no, it's, so we've addressed the building area. We have a 40-foot access, and then we have a separate physical access for the estate lot. You know, it's all active cranberry bog and wetlands, several hundred acres. This is how the Morse brothers would like to divide this property.
Well, I understand, I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that, I'm just talking about kind of our in-house, it's not, you know, I'm just making sure we have everything legally covered, because we've never
well,
done
it
it like
meets,
this.
it meets all the requirements, so the, and yes, it took a while to kind of figure out exactly what was going on. Both the, Lot A and Lot B would be complying lots. They meet all the dimensional requirements. And the estate lot, there were a couple of edits that needed to be made, and those were made. The plan, was revised to show, and I don't see it on this plan that I have dated 4/8. So, was it uploaded?
It was,
It shows
I
the-
saw it on, it shows the building area where the other buildings
Okay, I
are.
thought I opened that file, but this is.
Yeah, there's just no plan at this time to build on
Yeah.
the estate lot. I'm sure their intention is to convey the two smaller parts, the two
Sure.
smaller lots.
So do we need to, this plan with the estate lot, because it doesn't say anything about, or it says, okay, it says uplands.
Yeah, it's about 40,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
What is this random rectangle that shows up in this?
That's a
Is
separate
that
lot.
structure?
No, it's a
Here?
separate lot, though.
Oh, that's a separate lot?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I am not seeing online a plan that shows,
Yeah, I think
What
I
is
have it
that?
on. It's
Dude, I'm just, that's unusual, I'm just curious.
It's a
Is there-
different, you know, maybe it was an old
Right
wood
here.
lot back in the day or something.
Right.
So it's
So
just there.
just the
So it's
building
right
area.
there.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that right
So
here.
it was the bottom.
I'm saying
I mean, I
sometimes
got
a
it off
random
of
gravestone
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
Plan
so
on.
I know those things.
Yes. not a
All right,
separate-
so you're saying if we approve this estate lot, that just by default lots A
They-
and B,
correct.
we're not gonna do a separate process for an A&R?
correct, because it's not an approval, I mean, that's part of it, approval not required, and that's what you're determining by endorsing it. Either any lots that are shown on the plan that are not complying and would not, be allowed, would need to be indicated that they were not buildable. These are buildable lots.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to make a notation in the decision, just that, because when the building inspector goes, he's gonna chase it back, and, I mean, the
Wouldn't
zoning
you need
enforcement officer's
two-
gonna wanna know where this is made legal, and if there's not an A&R process.
Well,
So
yeah.
we're doing it
It's a
under.
yeah,
Right, but
yeah.
but we've never done it like this before,
Right,
so I'm just
right,
saying,
yep.
I'm just trying to close the loop paperwork.
Yeah,
Because it's just an unusual process.
And it is.
It's the first time we've done it this way in 15 years I've been on the board, so that's why I'm just gonna, I just wanna make sure legally we're fine.
And I think in a lot
in-house
of
is gonna work for
instances, what the board has been presented with is a situation where the A and R lots were to create what would
Right.
make the allowance for the estate lot, where in this
Right.
case, this lot.
Because you don't need to
required-
create the estate lot to make the A and B, so I guess I'm
Correct.
like, why did we do a special permit process? I don't understand, but, okay. Anyways, I'm caught up to speed, nonetheless confused, but.
Well, the special permit is because under current zoning, that lot wouldn't be a complying lot, and it needs the special permit for the estate lot.
Because of frontage.
Right.
But it has frontage on, well, whatever, I disagree with that, but that's neither here nor there. So do you have anything else, Stephanie, on
No.
this? You're good?
Yes, sir.
Board members, any questions, comments?
Where is that building area? Is it on this?
It's on the second
Yeah,
page.
Sorry.
it's right where the sheds are, if you look at the,
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks.
so we need two separate votes, right? We need a vote for the,
No, 'cause
Special
this is just
permit.
a special permit for, this is just special permit for an
so we're
estate lot.
just doing the special permit.
Yeah. And it just.
Then I'd have to agree with
Yeah,
you-
oh,
that
it's-
we
it's
need, we
convoluted,
also
no
need to
doubt.
certify the A and R. Is it,
I guess we're just gonna put it in the decision.
okay.
I mean, yeah, that's what, that's, yeah. There's actually, I mean, there's more frontage right here. So it's not, we're not making anything more or less conforming, there's more frontage here. So.
Right.
And there's frontage on this right away. And there's frontage on Purchase Street. Anyways, but I will go with what we're told, and, if everybody else is okay with it, I guess we can entertain a motion.
I don't know if there's anyone in the audience, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody in the audience? Just grab a mic, identify yourself, please, for the record.
So it's Jamie Stebbins, 227 Foundry Street, so I'm the neighboring abutment to Lot A. And to your point, it's as confusing for us leading into this, trying to figure out what's transpiring. So a couple questions. How is it zoned today? So A and B are today agricultural or?
A and B don't exist.
Okay, but what is that plot of land?
Residential.
It's residential, so there's no agricultural and
We
it's,
don't have an agricultural zone in Easton.
okay. And there's two buildable,
Well, see, if you wanna speak up, please, wait your turn, and then you have to identify yourself and get on the record. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, because I'm just concerned, yeah, obviously there's wetlands and then the bogs. And today there's, without A and B being there, there are two buildable lots, or there were, the town recognized buildable lots adjacent, because you got the pine, the cemetery.
So maybe I can help clear, so A and R, approval not required. It's kind of it's almost an oxymoron of the process, but, in East, so as a zone, planning and zoning board, if you meet our bylaws, okay, in this case, you need 150 feet of frontage on right of way. You need 40,000 square feet of contiguous uplands, so non-wetland area. And there are a few other dimensional requirements, which these A and B meet. So if you meet that, then we have no choice but to, to approve it. It's approved. It's allowed.
Okay.
Better way to say it. So normally, every other time we've done this, and we do this all the time, a large piece of, a large property like this, and they carve off a couple lots that meet the required zoning. They come in and do an A and R plan for lot A and lot B in this case. But however, they're doing they're going for a special permit for an estate lot, which, and through that process, they're also creating lot A and lot B. Again, A and B are allowed, they're kind of separate from the estate lot, but we're just procedurally doing this a little differently. But to your point, A and B are allowed because they meet all of our zoning requirements.
Okay, and there was one note mentioning that the environmental study maybe wasn't completed, or, because there is overlapping some wetlands, right?
But so planning board has, other than, really the only say we have, well, the only time we, on uplands, or wetlands, sorry, is, if, let's say this lot had 35,000 feet of uplands, it wouldn't be, we wouldn't allow, we're not, we can't allow, because you need 40,000. After that, everything else reverts to, the Conservation Commission. So when and if a permit is filed, a building permit application goes in, or that involves a site plan, that would go to Conservation Commission, where issues like that would be handled.
Okay, so that's yet to come, the conservation
Correct.
piece of it, okay, yeah, because there was a note on some of the paperwork I reviewed before coming that mentioned that there was a GIS versus actual environment.
Well, there was some
conservation.
confusion on our part in the office. Again, when I looked at this very quickly, and if something jumps out at me, I try to communicate that to the applicant so that they can respond, which I did. I was looking at the area of the map that showed, and in fact, it's not part of this plan, but the piece that was abutting up near Purchase Street, I wasn't exactly sure what we were looking at, and then as I started to review it, I realized that comment did not apply to the lots that they're creating here.
Okay, the last piece is, and maybe this isn't the forum for it either, but there's a stone wall that is not addressed that runs right between 227 Foundry and Lot A. And it's, I don't know if there's,
Is it
goes
this-
basically
One on the street?
There's a,
from Morse Road, it runs towards the Cranberry Bogs. Basically splits the two properties.
Okay, yeah.
yeah, I don't see
I
it.
see the one on the street.
Yeah, we've identified a couple of iron pipes that were found and held to establish that line. So I couldn't tell you if that stone wall is on the line, or off the line. If it's off the line, we wouldn't show it, but we've identified that property line by the location of the iron pipes.
Do you know, so you're not familiar with the stone wall, if it's close?
No, I haven't set foot on this property.
Well, hopefully if it's savable, it'll be saved. Stonewall family self, so. But where it's not,
Yeah, no,
Sure.
both of these lots will, they'll have house plans, and I think we're doing the perk tests Wednesday this week. They'll both have to go through Concom and building department, so.
Okay.
yeah, so that may be, if you continue to follow this at Concom, you can bring up something about the stone wall.
I want to be clear on this. They will need to go through the Conservation Commission so the wetland resource that exists on these two parcels is the floodplain, and it has a 100-foot buffer zone.
Buffer to that existing pond, I believe also.
Okay. So only if the work is within the buffer zone, the proposed work, will it go to the Conservation Commission. If the work is outside of the buffer zone, it won't need to go to the Conservation Commission.
Right.
Okay.
I can shed a little light on that because Harold Gershman, 243 Foundry Street. I worked with Melanie Demers
Where?
Dwers on the cemetery. So what we thought was a right-of-way for the cemetery is not a right-of-way. That actually belongs to the cemetery. So I don't know what you're showing for a right-of-way over here.
We're not showing a right-of-way, all we're showing is.
Are you creating a
vertical
right-of-way?
zoning. No, sir. It's a 40-foot wide strip of land, which is a minimum width requirement for an estate lot.
Okay, but is this what the path is today? Or what is this?
That's a 40-foot strip of land that we're creating.
You're creating it
If you
today.
could you look up
Correct.
at the screen? Are you talking about the existing Woods Road that's shown right there?
So there's.
Or is that, or is it this
Yeah, so.
black carve-out that you have there?
Well, so there's the dark lines for the 40-foot strip, and then the light lines inside of that are setbacks. And so now I see, as you mentioned, the existing Woods Road is clearly on
Right
the
here.
Town of Easton property.
For the cemetery?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
So we will not be using that for anything
Okay,
other than going to the cemetery.
so behind that the Woods Road, all of that, because the cemetery wanted to create more cemetery lots, but it's all wetland back there, and the spotted turtle, and
Well,
that got all turned down.
There's some, there's certainly room.
Oh, even back here, behind it was all wet back here. So I know that that's all wet, wet back here. I do know that from working with her.
All right, well, we're showing from 80, the land drops from 86 down to 80. We've got BVW lines put on. Well, we're referencing that they were from 2003. But if, certainly the town could approach the Morse Brothers and see if that was a possibility to expand the cemetery in that direction.
Can you just explain to me how this works for Lot A, since there's quite the cliff dwelling to go down to the pond?
Well,
That land is quite steep back there.
Well, but again, I kind of want to get back to what we're here for.
Yeah.
Um,
So I just don't
and
understand
again,
how you can create a lot A with
well,
that type
there's-
of land.
I mean, looking at, well, that's
There's plenty of room,
really,
there's plenty of room.
it's really not germane to what we're talking about. Again, we have to deal with the bylaws, but there is, right, there's,
There's plenty
there's
of room
100
for a
feet,
single family.
that doesn't start to 100 feet back, so in the bylaws, one of the dimensional requirements, 100 feet back, they want 150 feet minimum width. That's here, that's allowed, and safe to say that 100 by 150 foot area was developed to thinking of what, you know, a typical house, septic system, driveway, et cetera, would fit within. But again, even with the dropping off, the houses and sites can be designed with a drop off, but it's not really, it's not relevant to what we're discussing here.
Don't you need an acre for a house lot?
Well, you need 40,000 square feet of contiguous uplands, which they have. And you can see right here, they have 44,571 square feet for the lot, of which 40,052 square feet are contiguous uplands. So that makes it a legal lot, coupled with the 150-foot frontage.
But we're not actually even necessarily approving A and B right now. What we're approving is the estate lot.
Well,
But no,
well, we
but
sort
you
of are.
Yes, you are.
But again,
And
we
it's
don't.
not
We don't have a right to not
It's
approve
not,
lot
it's
A
not
and B.
Right.
approval.
They
Is
meet
it
our
an A
bylaws.
lot?
There's not a way, we cannot not allow lot A and B.
Right.
The confusion I had earlier was this is not the normal way we do it, but that doesn't make
Right.
it any less valid.
And if I could just make a statement, the reason it even comes to the planning board is because the Registry of Deeds requires an endorsement on these plans when they get recorded and it's a way of saying they're valid. They do meet the approval not required standards.
Right, it requires, you know, certified that
As
there's.
Greg said, it's a little bit of a.
Right. But approval is required, because you're right, it's certified that the wetlands are where they are, et cetera.
Right.
You know, and the conditions.
You-
And so, questions, like you just asked about the right of way to the cemetery, these questions, this is more questions than we've probably ever had on an A&R, but that's
Right.
good, we like input. But my opening babbling makes this no less, as I said, no less valid, it's just
Okay.
the process was a little.
Thank you.
So, that's great. Is there anyone else that has any questions or comments? All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see.
I just have one question.
Find Mr. Humphrey's head.
Sorry. I'm Tom Crook. I live at 1 Morse Road.
Okay.
So I'm at the, right there at the corner where it said Wood Swamp. I'm on this side. But I'm just curious. So I got it with Lot A, Lot B. I'm 1 Morse, 3 Morses across the street, and then 207 Foundries at the end there. But Morse Road, and I don't know what the code is in the town for the width of the road because it's a town road. But it's very difficult. I don't think 2 cars could pass on that road simultaneously. And I don't know at this time with 2 more houses going on there, if anything's going to be looked at as far as what that road should be. Should there be sidewalks there? Should it be widened? Is there any consideration for that?
I don't, unless the residents went and made a case to the Board of Selectmen that road needed to be modified and they accepted that, there will be no change to that road. And 2 more houses would not significantly, the single-family homes would not be considered as to be substantial enough or add
Okay.
substantial enough
Well-
traffic to warrant that.
Okay, what's the code on to have for, there must be a code as far as the width
For
of a
new
road?
development,
No, in general.
it's for new development. These are existing roads, historic roads. So again, as the chair pointed out, that's not what's before the board tonight. This isn't a subdivision request. They're not proposing a new road to service these
All right.
lots.
Right.
Where were, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so what we planning board has nothing to do with
Okay.
existing roads. So, and these are 2 new lots on existing roads.
Okay.
If Morse Road, let's say, was being
That's fine.
extended or.
I'm sorry,
that
yeah,
would be-
it
No,
gets
fine,
confused.
no, it's good.
So let me ask one question,
Sure.
and I won't take any more of your time. But where would I go then to?
I would, Stephanie said, to Board of Selectmen and DPW, I'd call it DPW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease when it comes to things like that.
All right.
So, and sometimes it's good to alert, folks of a situation, because I venture guess not many of them have taken the,
Right,
you know, the little fork in the road to Morse.
all right. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate the input. Anyone else?
Kenneth Branco, I'm at 3 Morse Road. If I understood correctly earlier, we said that this estate lot, there's no plan to build on it?
Not at this time, but they certainly could, once they get the special permit and the appeal period is over.
And
But
this,
at this time, they're not planning on putting a house within that building envelope that we identified.
and this is the special permit procedure?
This is the hearing for the special permit for the estate lot,
Well,
which is why,
why would they do this if they don't plan to build on it?
that's their business, sir.
Well, why would the board approve it to be built on if there's no plan to build on it?
Well, first, the board hasn't approved anything. We're holding a public hearing and discussing. But your point is valid, and that was my original concern. Or my original question, if they're looking, in preliminary discussions, I was told they were looking to build, see what they could do here for lots A, to create two
Sure.
houses, lots A and lot B. So, if the estate lot is not approved, then there's a second process that has to come in. Anyways, they still have to come back again for lots A and lot B. We can't, the way this plan's been presented, we can't, if we were to vote down the estate lot, we can't approve lot A and lot B. That's
No.
too convoluted. I
That-
wouldn't wanna do it that way.
And that is correct, because the board would have to indicate why they denied this special permit, and it would probably indicate a change to the plan. Again, at this point, the lot meets the requirements for the special permit.
Okay, so, and that's your only concern?
Well, not to disagree publicly, but, I mean, special permits, now, this plan meets the requirements of an A and R, lots A and lots B, but a special permit is more flexible, that's why it's special. Now, it just, if a lot, like, one concern I have with this, when you look at the building area, there's lots of information on the building area in lots A and lots B. And on these two being A and Rs, we're pretty limited with what we get to, to the earlier comment I had on the topography.
Sure.
It really doesn't matter. But I could see a situation, I have no idea, where, the building area, which is not, it's way over here, I have no idea what's going on there in terms of topography, how it relates to existing structures. And when we, many years ago, brought in the estate lot, the reason it was made a special permit was so that there could be a deliberation, I guess, or that the process would involve, okay, if we're gonna allow this estate lot, how does this house relate to, or this potential house relate to existing houses, or, because, it goes back to, the job of the planning board, one of the things under purview is to preserve the rural character of Easton. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't add new houses, but, if houses, end up, awkwardly addressing each other, or so that's, again, why I'm concerned with this, because as I understood, the process was to get two lots A and B, and I, think back to all the estate lot plans we've had before us, I don't recall, there's nothing here, we know nothing of where that house is in terms of, I see it's near Cranberry Bogs, but there's nothing about topography, how it relates. So that's a bit of and a lot of times we've had, think back to last year off of, Mr. McLaughlin was here with one, I'm trying to think of the name, that's, the one off of Pheasant Lane. We required, seeing building locations, or at least box locations, and driveways. And think of it, without me pulling it out, doesn't the state lot require, positive drainage, or that the driveway works with the existing topography? That's what I mean, not positive drainage. And how is that, I'm going by memory, because I don't have the code book in front of me, but how, that's not shown on this plan. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of an estate lot with a house location.
The access is shown, sir.
No, but there's no topography.
So we have a 230 acre.
Let's do this. Let's go back to square one. Let me grab the bylaw. And we can do it this way. Thanks. Oh, go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, it is active cranberry bogs and it is a lot of wetlands, but it's a 230 acre estate lot that we're asking for with over 40 acres of uplands.
No, I understand that, but
And the
here's the
building
problem.
area-
The estate lot, you're also asking for a house to be in a specific location on that estate lot, which is
Yes.
fine. But there's no information about that.
The information is
Tell me
that
tell me what the grade is. What's the proposed top of foundation? Right? There's
There
nothing
are-
on there.
there are 5 existing buildings in that area
Yeah,
that
irrelevant.
people go to
Irrelevant.
every single day.
Greg, I think with
So-
the bylaw, because when the plan was first submitted, it didn't show a building area, and the bylaw does require that the plans show for an estate lot.
We have a
a
150-foot by 267-foot building area in between what is labeled as an existing dwelling, existing bog buildings, and existing bog buildings. So, I don't know what that so-called dwelling looks like, but I think the common sense test has been passed as far as the estate law.
Excuse me, I wasn't talking about those. I was talking about this.
This town of Easton.
This lot.
cemetery, it's
That's the cemetery?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, those existing
structures
buildings are what?
Okay,
thank you.
Just give me a minute here.
Well,
My only point is that they're there and they're accessible
it
today
doesn't require that they show.
without any construction.
And, yes, yes. When we came to use it, it would have to come.
Okay.
See, this might be, the approval not required according to plan shall take the place of the plan otherwise required for special permit. Building area shall be designated on the plan and the width of the estate lot, the widest portion of that building shall exceed.
Are those existing dwellings accessed through the existing right-of-way?
Correct. It's a 16.5-foot wide right of way.
And their dwellings.
Well, one is labeled a dwelling and the other is labeled as bog buildings, so I don't know if they use that so-called dwelling as an office or what.
So how does an estate lot handle with an existing dwelling on it? I
That's
just-
the problem.
This
I
is
have with
confusing
it.
as all
I
heck, I
think you
gotta
would
tell
have
ya.
to, I think you'd have to take
This
down
is the strangest A&R plan I've ever seen. And this is just not consistent at all with how we've done this in the past. Because in theory, because it's not an estate lot, we're looking to make.
They're requesting it to be designated as an estate lot.
Right, I understand that, but does our bylaw allow an estate lot with an existing dwelling on it?
It does not,
It
it's
doesn't.
silent on that. It doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't, and I don't, you could certainly have a lot that you're creating as an estate lot with a lot on it. If you were creating one from an existing oversized lot, the requirements are, you have to have a minimum of 40 feet of frontage. That 40 feet has to extend, I think, a certain depth. I don't have that memorized. And you have to show, it has to be twice the size of, if you're creating one, it has to be twice the size of the allowed lot size for the district. So they'd have to have a minimum of 80,000 square feet of contiguous upland. You have to show the building lot, I think I've already said that. And so you could have an existing lot that has a house on it, and your estate lot could have that structure on it, and then your lot, your remainder lot could be the complying lot, under the standard zoning.
See, so here's what I was referring to, the existing drainage patterns shall not be disrupted by the construction of a driveway on the reduced frontage portion of the estate lot. A
Mhm.
grading and sloping plan showing
Yeah.
existing and proposed conditions shall be
Which they have
submitted
not.
with the special
You're right.
permit.
They have not submitted that.
Because we are not proposing any new access to the property.
So I think, Greg, to your point, if they can't show that and it's a special permit, then the board could base their decision on that.
So, I have a question. So without the frontage, you're creating 40-foot frontage for the estate lot. Do you have frontage in other locations that meet the lot requirement, the 150-foot frontage requirements for the remainder in other locations besides?
I don't believe we would need it. I think all we need to do is conform with the
Wi-
bylaw.
wi- My point being, I mean, clearly, you have it without this A and R plan, you have the frontage there. You're creating two lots, you're carving out two lots,
Yes.
thereby creating a non-conforming lot in the back, unless you have 150-foot frontage somewhere else.
Unless we request that the so-called
But-
remaining land be.
Which
kept.
is why you're going for the special permit.
Correct.
I understand that, but I think
But
to
I'm
the
not-
point,
There's
The-
more than 150 right there.
is there? Yeah,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, that's the question I'm asking.
So that's why I just don't understand, I get, it's just when you start to get into it's like we're allowing a special permit without dealing with any proposed redevelopment of this area. So I would just be more comfortable if it just been straight A and R, because they have enough frontage
Yeah,
in
so
other
just-
places,
just
at
do
least
the
in one
A&R.
other place. If not,
But if it was just a straight A and R plan, you'd only be looking at lot A and B, which you've already admitted you have to approve.
absolutely.
So the only issue is the approval for the estate lot.
But you don't,
Yeah, exactly.
but you don't need an
Which
estate
is why
lot.
we.
That's what I'm saying.
You have an existing non-conforming lot with a
But so-
dwelling on it.
Someday, when they decide to put a new house on the property, it's not gonna be what's there today. And that's all I would say. I think we're making it a little more complicated than it is.
No, that's your opinion.
Yes, sir.
We have a responsibility to the town of Easton. These bylaws are here for a reason. We're not here because we want to get away from our wives or husbands and come out and do stuff. This thought has gone into this stuff.
I
So,
understand that.
you're in this business, there's plenty of times things get redeveloped, and they're not in a way that maybe people would have liked. So that's why, granted, this is not your typical pork chop lot, this is different. This process has been made much more complicated to go into a special permit. It should have just been two A and R plans, which were all the preliminary discussions I had with the property owner anyways when he called on it. So I know why opening up a can of, so we're gonna allow a special permit that doesn't have all the information that we're required from every other special permit. And that's what troubles me.
Well,
Okay, because we have to go we have precedent. So someone comes in here next week and doesn't, well, you allowed last week, you approved one that didn't have all this information. Then why do we have it in our bylaws?
You have it in your bylaw because if I'm constructing access to my estate lot, you certainly wanna see line and grade, and you wanna make sure that, it's not causing a drainage problem to someone else. But our physical access to the building area on our requested estate lot is there today, and it's serving as adequate access to those 5 existing buildings.
Is your access through this area? So the plan doesn't even tell me that. Like, where is the
Right, where is
existing
the-
access?
Right.
He does tell you it's a right of way,
Sheet two.
16
But it
foot.
runs through one of the other parcels,
Yeah, and it's not a,
That's correct.
but
You're talking about the access
So
on
this
Foundry
is-
Street?
what he's talking about.
Oh, okay, there it is, tucked away. Okay. Existing. All right, well,
So there's access to those buildings today. That's the access to the proposed building area. The 40-foot strip is just in order to comply with your special permit requirements for the estate lots.
but again, it's not required, because you already have frontage over here. There's
That's-
nothing in our bylaw that does not allow you to keep that to 40 feet.
Well, this is the plan that we would like you to
I
approve.
understand that. So,
Well, again, I
Yeah,
think
I
the
have a
board,
question.
based on the fact that they're not showing the drainage, they're not showing the driveway, which is certainly talked about in the bylaw, it is a special permit that gives the board some flexibility in the approval or denial of the special permit.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Branco, and I'm at 3 Morse Road, but the plan, the way that it was described, is a Purchase Street access, was it not?
It's a
And now-
Purchase Street address because the property goes all the way up to Purchase Street. It's just, that's what the address is designated. So the
Okay.
property has much more frontage
Correct.
on Morse Road than
Right.
it does on Purchase Street.
Are you certain that the access from Foundry is Morse Brothers' property?
It is not.
It is not, I know. I
didn't-
believe that it
I
is
didn't
not.
say it was their property, I said it's
Right.
from a 16.5 foot
So-
wide right of way.
So, right,
So it's the Magner Family Nominee Trust
Correct,
is the owner of it.
right.
And I don't know for how long Morse Brothers has had a right of way, but
That's been an agreement for ages between the grandfather of that
Sure.
home and the, so it's very
Is it a deeded
informal?
right-of-way? Is it deeded?
Yes.
I haven't read the deed myself, but yes, there's a deed reference
Mhm.
on it.
Yeah.
There is a deed
On the
reference
plan.
on it.
That's a very informal agreement between the people who
Well-
own the
Well,
bog
deeded
and.
right of way
I think
is
it's
very formal.
It would
But
be
I mean-
formal if it was deeded, that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, that means that the Magner estate is not the Morse Brothers. It's deeded to the Magner estate,
But-
right?
That's fine, but
The deed
question is-
references the easement, it
Oh,
references
okay, so they're,
it grants the right
so
of
it's,
way.
it's a formal agreement?
I don't know if it's deeded, it's just a right of way as far as I understand.
But that's
well,
not our, I mean,
Right.
it's irrelevant
Right.
for what we're dealing with here
Right.
tonight.
Oh, okay.
So look at, we've spent enough time on this. Here's, so I don't think we had to do this as a special permit public hearing, that's fine. And because if we didn't have a special permit before us and this was just an A&R, you would have been out of here 45 minutes ago.
Yes.
Okay, and I understand your frustration, but you have to understand, we have process and really more, we just don't wanna set precedents. But if we were to approve this, because if this was before us just for the A&R, for A and B, it would, from everything I see here, it would be allowed, because they clearly have 150 feet of frontage further up on Morse Road. And it's done. But since it's in this mechanism, I would only, as the chair of this board, if the board were to approve this, I would want in the decision, that if any change to the access from this existing right of way, it has to come back to planning board, to go through it, because then that would be consistent with our requirements and our bylaws. I don't think it's ever gonna go that way, looking at what's there, but you never know.
I would have no problem with that being a special condition, a special
Yeah.
permit.
I mean, I'm just trying to, again, I get, right, you did what you were told, and that's fine, I'm trying to tidy this up as best I can. So, what I'm saying is, so again, these two lots are allowed, they meet our bylaws. And it's being called an estate lot, but it's really just a larger lot that's getting a little smaller. And what I'm saying, if at any point, if the access changes to between the cemetery and lot B, they'll have to submit a site plan for this board.
But they cannot access Lot A from the existing road because of the pond and the.
They can access it from Morse Road, which is a publicly accepted road.
Yes, but if you're talking about the existing entrance from Cranberry Road, okay, no.
But I'm not.
Okay, that's
Again, lots A and lot A and lot B, no.
Okay,
all the
from Morse Road, yes.
all
absolutely.
the it's allowed.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, it's allowed.
Just
Um,
one last question.
Sure.
Isn't it very unusual to have a Purchase Street address and but
No,
the
you-
access is from,
That happens all the time in this town. I can't tell you why.
the mailman must.
A lot of times,
be very
no, it's usually, a lot of times it's the post office, right? It's, the post office holds a lot of power. It's amazing when it comes to, you, I don't mean to laugh, but you sit on this board long enough in any town, and there's screwy addresses all over the place, and it's always, people blame the assessor's office, when you go there, you find it's really the post office. And I apologize to any postal employees in the room. So, okay. You guys,
I just wanted
Yeah.
just to add another point of
Sure.
clarification, because I liked what you were possibly suggesting in terms of, if access was going to be anywhere other than the existing right-of-way, that they would come back. So oftentimes these estate lots are being proposed because there's a house being proposed, but there is no house being proposed. So if a house was going to be proposed, which would also likely be maybe because they're also asking for another access, would they need to come before the planning board, or could we also write that into the decision?
well, here's the thing, so there's an existing dwelling, right, and then a couple other commercial buildings. They're not allowed, making this an estate lot does not allow them to create another dwelling. But let's say they, in the future, if they, and correct me if I'm, let's say they demolished all 5, 6 buildings and put up a new residence. No, they would have, that wouldn't,
As long as
Come
it
to
all
us.
complied, right?
after tonight, the only reason they'd come back to us is if they changed access from, because to me that closes the loop, makes our bylaw whole.
Right.
If they change from that easement they have further up to coming between here, then, because that, again, and the reason that is, let's say they were trying to do that now, okay, well, what is the driveway design, how does it affect people's backyards? That's how we look at things, our bylaws have been written flexible to allow property owners to add dwellings, but in unusual circumstances like that, we try to make so that it doesn't, affect people's, enjoyment of their
So,
environments.
if they were to build a new dwelling, what's the mechanism to confirm that they're not just building a new dwelling, pulling a building permit and building a new dwelling?
One of the things that the building inspector checks is to ensure that what's being built conforms with zoning, because
Okay,
he is
so
the
he's gonna
zoning
review it,
enforcement
and,
officer as
because
well.
he'll see that there's,
Right.
okay, I've got but he'll
Yes,
confirm, okay.
yes,
I would expect any future dwelling would have to go in the building envelope on the approved plan. Otherwise, we would also have to come back and amend
Right.
the special permit.
Yeah, well, not just that, but you'd have to take down,
right.
a
That
building.
question would be raised.
Yeah,
In the building. So I couldn't resist.
It's fair to say though, too, I think part of the reason they're doing this, with the estate lot request, when you have that 150 feet of frontage in another location, like you said, why would you really don't need to do this, you could just done the A&R. But the reason is they wanna have the ability to build an additional dwelling over at that other.
No, because they already have a dwelling, so they can't, this doesn't allow a second dwelling.
right.
This,
On the same lot.
this
Well, that's
actually
what we're
does
talking
nothing.
about.
Show the frontage to the 230 acres today, which is over on Purchase Street, right?
Well,
There is already a dwelling there, you're saying?
No.
No, the dwelling
No,
is
it's just the address for the
behind.
It's where the sheds are for the
Where the
cranberry
sheds are.
box.
Right, it's over here.
So there's not an additional, there's two,
No, I thought Wayne mentioned you already saw that there was a 150.
Well, there is if you look on this plan, they
There's an
designate
right
an
here.
existing dwelling there,
Right.
Yes, that's Chuck's house, caretaker.
right.
so that, they're not,
They
so the
cannot,
only, I'm assuming some point there'll be a house added on A and a house added on B. Those are the only houses, in terms of, the house on, they certainly can tear down the existing dwelling and replace it, but they can't add a second dwelling, that this process doesn't allow.
Well, just when we were talking about frontage and whether or not it exists, and I think you looked and said, yeah,
Well,
it exists already, why do you need to?
There's a lot of those
They're
other
choosing-
frontage areas that are wetlands, and you would not be approved for construction of a driveway or a road.
Right.
You can't get there from Purchase Street. You can see on the overall plan, it's heavily encumbered by wetland on
Sure.
essentially, he's doing a belt
So,
and
it's the
suspenders.
existing
He's trying to make
16.
sure that he has future ability to do this.
right, that, right.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, that's-
All right, Well, I've had enough A&R talk. Is there anyone else that has not been heard or anything else to add? Then, anybody care to make a motion?
Wayne, you're so good at this, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, right. All right, so
you need
the
a motion to
Oh, yeah,
right.
first of all,
We'll
yeah,
do
would you like
that.
us to close the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll start with a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? All right, it's unanimous.
All right, and I will make a motion to approve the special permit with the caveat that future, oh, you've got it written down, perfect. If approved, any change in access from the granted existing right-of-way would require coming back to the planning board with,
Site plan.
site plan for approval, and grading for approval.
I'll second that.
Good, Suzanne? Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
And folks, we appreciate you coming out.
Just think you
We
weren't even the
appreciate,
project manager.
we appreciate the,
Go to Easton tonight?
appreciate the input. All right.
Well,
That
hopefully
was
this will be a lot.
absolutely
I don't know.
the longest thing
Yes,
I've
definitely.
ever had. But that's okay. It's good. If they were all
All
easy.
our meetings are like this.
If they were all easy, we wouldn't be making the big
I
bucks.
thought there might be
Thank you very
a
much.
subtler reason, but it's just a matter of somebody talked them into,
The Breeze. Wasn't that a song by,
yeah.
is that the Allman Brothers? They go, or is that, no, that's Leonard Skinner, right?
Yeah, it
This
was-
is Leonard Skinner.
Keep blowing down the road, yeah.
Am I ready to announce?
You are, it's all yours.
All right, Bill Humphrey, 23 Mullen Lane. I'm also the owner of 222 and 224. Center Street is, it's already approved for a 3-lot subdivision. And the big, I have,
I just want to interrupt you just for 2 seconds.
Sure.
So this is, just so we all know, this is just a preliminary discussion tonight, some ideas we've been kicking around tonight.
yep,
So,
just
and
wanted to
it's-
see your views on this. So, being a developer in town, builder, been here for building since 1981. I've seen what the town has gone up in so much value, and I can go right now. I have actually a plan there that you'll see what I.
Last page.
Last page, yeah. I don't have great order here. I threw this together without great order. But the last page, you'll see, that's what will probably happen in here. Just like I did down the street at Lexington Estates, they're going to be million-plus homes. And they'll sell very quickly, but I don't like it for this area, and I just wanted to run before the board. First of all, I feel we've got enough million-dollar houses in the town of Easton. I'd like to see something that's more affordable to keep our kids in the town instead of having them move to areas like Wareham, et cetera, where they can afford it. I'd rather see my kids graduate from Easton, go to college, come back and live in the town of Easton. I'd rather see the policemen, firemen live in the town of Easton. So what I wanted to get a feeling from you guys is you'll see with the 4 acres, I made up just some ideas. So if I did, so I got 3 lots, so I figured, hey, why not do, instead of 3 houses, 3 duplexes, which will make it more affordable because it cuts the price of the lot in half. And now, instead of building million-dollar houses, I can build affordable condo, and each condo would have its own septic system because it's all 2-minute inch gravel there. There's no water table. We went down 16 feet, we couldn't hit water table, which is fantastic. There's no wetlands, there's nothing, it's just the perfect land. So I know, it's wonderful land. So what I've done is, I've done a couple ideas. That you'll see the front page. What I wanted to do is create something that looked like a house. So you'll see on the front page, the color page called The Breeze. Looks like a house. That's a duplex. So what it is, it's a deeper, and the garages are on the back. So you don't see the garage, so it looks more like a house. So that's what I'm trying to create. So I also have, when I build, if I have to build the 3 big houses, I don't have any control over what's going to get cut, tennis courts, swimming pools, etc. There's no, they can do whatever they want. And that's basically what happened over at Camden Way. They built 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square foot houses, and they used up the entire lots. So I don't think that would look nice here. It is a beautiful area to do it. It's just that I'm looking for a better idea. And again, we don't have enough product in the town for affordability like this. I'm not saying a 40B, I'm saying something that the kids can get into. I just did some right up the street here. Those sold honestly, they sold in an hour. The duplex that I built right across the street from Doug King. In an hour. Put them on the market, they were gone because one is a first-time buyer and the other one was a person downsizing. And my wife put it right on the MLS, they were gone, just like that. So with what you'll see on these plans, I just have some different site ideas in creating like a no, you'll see like no cut. So there's a few ideas there. You know, nothing's carved in wood. I actually like the plan that has an entrance off of Gary Lane. I like that plan better. Than having, I don't know, but you guys might feel like you like the common driveway feeding 2 of the products, which I'm not a big fan of. I like everything to be individual, so that way there, the homeowner owns their own driveway, owns their own septic, owns their own water main. The only thing that's connecting them is a wall between the houses. And that's what I did right down the street here. So there's no, the only condo fee that those people have down the street is what is it called? The common connection on the outside of the building, on that firewall, the party wall. That's the only thing that they have. It's $50-something a month is the condo fees. So I'm trying to make it, what I'm trying to create is 2 smaller homes. Yeah, they are connected. I'm not looking to do 6 houses. I'm looking to do 3 of these units on there. And these units are smaller than the homes that I'm proposing. So I really think it's a win-win. It's a beautiful area. The house is only going to be on one side. I'm going with a 1-car garage, and it's going to be somewhere around, it's going to be a 3-bedroom, and it's going to be about 1,600 square feet. And the other side is going to be a 2-car garage, and it's going to be about 1,700 to 1,800 square feet. And so they're, at that price, these things will be very affordable to get into. And also, again, new construction. And I just wanted to see your feedback on that. I have another plan here that I just threw together, and still has, this is putting just 2 houses. I'm sorry I didn't make should have made a bigger one for you guys. But what I did here is, I do have an egress over here that I own. In fact, this is the estate lot that was approved, was the egress through here. So what I did is I put a common driveway back here for that, and then I did 2 driveways here. I'm not crazy about this plan, especially when I can create no cut back in here and keep everything up in here and save the forest. So just want to get your feedback on this to see if I should go forward with this, with a public meeting for the neighbors. And I didn't mean to take up much of your time. It's just that I'm at a point here that I'm just feeling, I want to see if the town wants to work with me here and create something that we need.
Sure. Thank you. So we've, Stephanie and I and Bill have been talking for a while on this. You know, if, or some of our new members might know, he's come in a couple times. And so, we were sort of intrigued as we talked about this, because we think back to our the master plan, diversified housing, some of the stuff we've been talking about. And, you know, we know, in fact, this was one of the lots when we were looking last year at trying to create compact neighborhoods, but we just didn't have enough land, you know, we can't spot zone, it's not legal, but we're going back and forth, and then through one of the meetings, hey, what if we try duplexes? And I thought, okay, well, what would make this, because we don't want everybody to come running, you know, start tearing down houses and come with, you know, oh, we're gonna put duplexes everywhere. But nothing, so it was intriguing, because Bill said, you know, he was willing to limit the size on these, so we just said, you know, 1,800 feet. He was, as a special permit, as duplexes are, he'd give us architectural approval on the exterior. He had the deeded open space, and we talked about an affordable unit. So that was all pretty, I don't know, for me personally, that checked off a lot of things, you know, that we've been talking about. So anyway, so just with that, I'll throw it out to you guys and see what you, or you, Stephanie, if you have any.
No, again, Greg and I have been talking with Bill about this. It certainly meets a need in Easton. We hear that regularly. I hear it anecdotally when I'm talking to people, that it's very expensive to move to Easton. I know my own son, when he came back from New York City, would have loved to have moved to Easton. He's working in Walpole, and they just couldn't afford it. They could buy a house and probably do nothing else. So I do think this meets a need, and I like that Bill mentioned that the duplex that he just built up on Elm Street sold to someone who was a first-time buyer,
First-time buyer.
and
Yes.
as well as someone who's downsizing, which is one of the things Greg's been talking about, the compact neighborhood overlay district, to attract those folks too and keep them in town.
And I think it's important too, what I do here is having all individual utilities, the septic system, and that's what I did up the street too. I did 2 septic systems, 2 water mains, 2 gas meters, 2 electric, so it's your house. It's just a party wall separating it, that's it.
I think, and if I could just comment on the style, again, it's up to the board what they feel fits, but I think in this particular neighborhood, the style that he's proposing would fit in well too, and should be acceptable to the neighbors.
What am I, you know, and I know you've given this a little thought, I just wish we didn't have so many curb cuts. You know, in such a, you know, I mean, in such a short area, but that's nothing that has to be
So
decided tonight.
do you like the shared driveway then? Is that what you
Or a driveway
Well,
that branches-
yeah, I mean, but,
because it would be an 18-foot, which is required to be if it's a shared driveway, it would have to be 18 feet wide, so you can have traffic go by
No.
both ways, isn't it?
well, no, in a special permit, we can reduce it.
And, I mean, the numbers, this isn't like a roadway that's serving
No.
10 lots.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to worry about that tonight so much.
Could
but
we
I-
make it as large as the road I live on?
Yeah, it's not 18 feet, right?
I live on Mullen Lane, I don't know if anybody's ever driven down there. The road's 12 feet wide.
So I guess, you know, and if you guys remember, a couple months back, a couple weeks ago, I didn't talk about this project specifically, but I mentioned this kind of concept, and I had asked you to just give it some thought, and you know, and again, what intrigues me on this is that it does gives us an opportunity to create a housing type in the, you know, yeah, I don't wanna, you know, in the lower price point for single family homes, that's new. I mean, today, if you buy a house in Easton, it's either, you know, $350 and you have to put $250 in it to make it work, you know, or it's $900 because that's
Right.
building costs
This
and
will
land
be in the
costs.
price point of what people are paying for the houses that they have to put $150,000 into, with the rubble foundations and the terrible insulation job and the horsehair plaster and all that. That's what these things are going to be selling for. In other words, these will be made to the to all the new codes, even the stretch code, obviously. So the houses down the street that I built, they haven't had a gas bill through the winter over $100. So these things are very efficient. And same with electricity. All the lights are LED lights in the whole house. And they have air-to-air exchanges, so they're very healthy.
I like the concept. I think it's great. I do like the shared driveway, how it's split, but I know sometimes residents may not want that, so I don't know the best solution for that. But I definitely agree that Easton can be a challenging town for someone who just bought a house like myself. And I think these houses have a great curb appeal. They look nice. They don't look like a traditional duplex that you think of when you think of the word. So I appreciate this idea.
Thank you.
You know, the concept to me is good. I share the concern about the number of driveways coming out. I'm wondering whether there wouldn't be an opportunity for you to put a shared driveway in off of Gray along the back of them and feed each unit off of that one road from Gray and not do any curb
Off
cuts.
of Gary, you mean? I'm sorry.
Gary, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And
Oh, I know
not
what
do
you're
any
saying.
curb cuts on Center Street, but feed it all and have it,
Right.
like that. You might save some money and it would cut down on that.
Yeah, I thought
I
that
see
the
what
only
you're
problem is then they have to cross the driveway to go to their yard. Does that bother them? Which, not the end of the world, but I think
Well,
something
yeah,
along those lines. I mean, I was thinking.
You can make that work.
You have like a central and then branches off, and maybe even,
Well,
You
yeah, I
might
mean, I
do
was looking
two,
at this
but you
one.
can-
and
Yeah, you could
just
go to
coming
a
in
core.
and
You could,
Right.
you could
feeding
go,
it
Yes.
like that.
right.
you could do a
Yes.
house here, 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 and come in this way, and you could do it
No,
that way
you
too.
you could.
know,
You
like
could do a
square.
core. You could do a core and make it work, yes.
Yeah, because I think we're all kind of commenting on the same thing, that the driveways seem to be, other than that, I have no,
That'll start making it look repetitive and more like.
Because it'd be nice to have it be
Yeah,
a
I
nice,
mean, that's
quiet
it.
little community versus paving.
Right,
everywhere,
right,
you know,
right.
That's, I think what
Yeah.
we're all saying.
Yeah.
And
And you could do up to 3 on it.
you do 6
Fine.
on it
But
if you
yeah,
want,
yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's not like every,
Right.
everybody's not everybody's gonna leave at once, and it's not that far. So
No, that's why I'm looking for input. I'm looking for, I want you guys' input to see what is the best way to approach this. And I see what you're saying, Wayne, is now what you've done is basically you drive by and you see there's some houses out there, but there's no traffic going through here. People are walking by, not interrupting, because you know how Center Street is probably the most wonderful street to walk in Easton, bicycles, runners, etc. So I appreciate that. I can understand that. So I think a core road would be the way to go, and it's very easy to do. That's easy to make work in this. There's so much land.
well, the devil's in the details, but, there's one thought anyways.
Sure. Yeah. Good thing.
Well, I agree, and I think if, that's a concept definitely worth looking into, and I guess if I had to choose from any of your other plans, I do like the shared driveway. I think that's kind of the beauty of trying to, preserve some of the land and have less paving, because it's definitely too many driveways. And the other thing I like about that plan that you had was that, which also could be maximized with Wayne's idea, is, like you said, Center Street is, not that all the houses, they all have different setbacks, but that is our street, right?
Yeah.
Like Center Street is our neighborhood town, and that gives you an opportunity to create some relationship, which you're actually showing in this photo, with a walkway, probably leading to a sidewalk, where I think you could probably even get those houses that you're showing, they're already beyond the 25-foot setback. You could probably move them up a little bit, not that they all have to be in a row, but help create that
Yeah, how nice
connection
would
to the
that be
sidewalk.
with the porches that you have
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
Yeah.
on Center Street, which is one of the like you said, one of the nicest streets in Easton, to be able to do that.
think would be a really nice thing to capitalize on, and I think that it would definitely be worthwhile to bring it forward for the public to comment on. I feel like not necessarily this project, but I've heard a lot of discussions with the community divided with the merits and not merits of, you know, as soon as you bring in a need for smaller scale housing and the ability for young people to have it, we're also potentially introducing a greater burden onto the school system. And how does that compare to 3 single? I'm not expressing my opinion here. I'm just saying I would love to have some input from the community in terms of, you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
what does our community really want to see? What do we really want to support? And obviously it's up to us as a planning board to help plan our community in a way that we think is reasonable and responsible, but it would be nice to have some, I think, input, given the recent discussions that I've heard of.
Could I just, on that, if I go and build it the way it is, they're gonna be 5-bedroom houses.
But not every $1 million house has 5 kids in it.
Well,
And that's
what they do is they
If I
end up,
may,
they become in-laws and all that.
School enrollment in Easton has been trending down year over year.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying this would be an
the town,
excellent
you know, at
place
some point,
to
the town really
invite
needs
some community,
school for children.
some community input.
Sure it
is
is,
all
but
I'm
don't
saying.
forget, and your point's well taken, but I think, you know, for the folks at home, that community, you know, that community input, it's one thing when a butters come into a project, but we just 3 years ago went through the master plan process, and we got deep into the weeds on this stuff, and we came up with, we needed diversified housing types, which we've been working at, and yeah, right, every time there's a new house proposed, you know, people, and there's a big budget issue in town with schools. There's always a big budget issue in town with schools in every town, but our demographics, yeah, our town is aging, and the vitality of any town, you know, you need to keep it young. And I'm not saying add 10,000 bedrooms this year, but you know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that yeah, continuing input is good, but we have quite a bit through we went through a really comprehensive master plan process. I think that's a nice tool that we have to use, and it was kind of the genesis of the thinking on this one.
And so I appreciate that you've reconsidered and you're offering up, I think, some really potentially nice options for the town, and I feel like a very important location, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife owns Humphrey Realty Group, and so she's the one who sees it more than I do. People coming in, young people coming in to her office and said, yeah, would like to buy in Easton, what's your budget? Our budget's $400,000. Well, there's nothing in Easton for $400,000, house lots are $350,000. So, and that's the end of that, and they're gone. Unfortunately. So I've done a couple of these. I did a duplex on Bay Road, and they sold in the high 3s. Those sold very quickly. So I think the town really needs us in the area. I just don't want to be doing big houses in this area. It would look fantastic, but I don't think that's what we want. I'm just speaking for myself, and I've lived in the town since '81. I just don't want to see it happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, to Bill's credit, Stephanie and I have had a lot of kind of off the record conversations with him, and his motivation in this is to create something. You know, we have kids the same age, roughly, you know, and we see what happens, and you know, all the kids, everybody lives in the city now, but right, once they start having kids, you figure either half, 2/3 are gonna go to the back, might not come back to their hometown, but they're coming back somewhere. And, but yeah, they're not looking, they can't, you know, they're not looking for the 4,000 square foot home. And to me, this is about, you know, hopefully when we really dig into the weeds on the structures, yeah, it's, you know, what kind of things we can keep in scale, and if we can have nice details, because, you know, Center Street probably is the most important one. It's one of the most important roads in town, I think, because it's a thoroughfare, it's well-traveled both on foot and by car. It has some great examples of architecture, both new and old. And, you know, and this is this is a very visible, important project, because it's a little different and a great location, walkable downtown, and it would, you know, an opportunity, I think, to create something underutilized, well-needed, and hopefully aesthetically pleasing.
And it's not money-driven, I make the same amount of money. So that's not it. I think it's more of the character, that's what it is. I probably would make more money, but it doesn't matter. I think doing this here is a better thing. Not do what I have approved right now. I just don't think, like the back lot here is already sold, and I'm not going to discuss here what the price of the lot is, but it's a lot. A lot is a lot. But I think this is I'm looking at the right thing to do. Again, I live in the town, I basically lived here most of my life. My kids live in the town, my son, I built a house for in the town, and I want it to stay like that.
Great, well, so maybe, work on some site concepts, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we can look at that next.
I like Wayne's approach, though, coming off of Gary, because if I did Gary being a feeder road, then I could put the units closer to the feeder road and have the walkways, and people will drive in, and then at the end, you'd have to have fire department, backup, etc. But you could do that, and you could see the houses from Center Street, but that feeder road off of Gary Lane will make it safer, and it won't interrupt Center Street at all. So I do like that. That's the way I think I'm gonna come back in.
Pair that with what Deb said about
Yeah.
the proximity of the houses to Center Street, because I think that's an important link to keep in mind, that bringing the houses to address Center Street in a kind of a regular fashion is gonna help a
Well,
lot.
the garages are on the back, so the houses would be
right,
close to
right,
center.
but
The
it's
houses should be
it's-
fronting, the houses should be fronting.
Yeah, so the houses would
Center
front
Street,
Center
yes.
Street, and the garages, the road would be
Right.
behind it,
yes.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
sir.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Let me grab all this junk off here, this is all gonna change, obviously. Thanks, you don't have to throw them back in order, just chuck them around here any way you want.
No, don't take, no, it's coming back to something else. You don't need
On unit diversity, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
Although,
Um,
Suzanne doesn't even want to just for the record.
Oh, sure.
All right, 661 Washington
Yeah,
Street.
sure.
Just for the minute.
There you go. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
So don't worry about the note on it.
Special permit mixed use, design discussion. So tonight we are having, as you know, and for Bob, our new member. Bob, Robert?
Yeah, no, Bob, please.
So, this is a, unique project, exciting project. You know where Korea's Plaza is in Easton, across from Diffie? So that, at our last meeting, so this is a mixed use, 30 apartments, residential apartments, and, several thousand square feet of commercial. There's, 4 buildings, of which, part of the special permit process, we have exterior, design review. And so we approved the site plan last week. We broke it out a little different because they wanted to get going on the permitting of the site and the working with the utilities. So now they're back, we're gonna start so this is not a formal hearing tonight, just preliminary. So I guess you guys are gonna kind of present us where you're at, but I wanna caution the board, because, you know, we can't get too deep into the weeds from the board's end, because it's not a public hearing, so,
And
you
no
know.
deliberation.
So, yeah, we can't, exactly, so.
We dealt with the 123 matter too.
Yeah, but that's next.
That's on-
Is that 123 Depot, I assume?
Yeah, but it's all part of it, so I didn't know. if-
Right, but still, we'll go with this, and we'll do that at the end.
What happened? Suzanne, did you? I don't think
This is
so.
the latest, 417.
Pull it up and plug it back in. Which first thing is on?
Probably. There's
Four
a lot
seven,
of-
no, well, the architecturals were sent. I don't know, because did you guys upload the architecturals? You did, right?
We did. Last week.
So are they 417? Is that what it is? I'm just gonna-
I was able to access them.
Oh, there we go. It's gonna come back.
Oh, it's up.
Did you click on?
It's coming back.
There you go.
No, go back to oh, are you there? I didn't actually go this way. But click on elevations. Oh, yeah.
Or you can look
yeah,
right behind
it's
you,
right
there's a
here.
big screen.
Hey, look at that.
It's beautiful, Judge.
Okay, we can go. Cue the deer. Remember that movie with Chevy Chase? What was that called?
Suburbs or something like that? Was it Suburbs? Or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know, I
Funny
think it
Farm?
just,
No. Was it?
No,
Yeah, Funny. Wasn't Funny Farm?
oh, now why?
All right, so
Yeah.
we will be quiet and attentive and listen to your presentation.
That's the question.
This
I wasn't talking about you. Talking about me.
So, get exit.
Sorry, we're still getting over a very intense Form A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was just me looking.
Wonder if we can.
Lead off, or should
Oh,
I?
no, this is your
Okay.
show. You just
All
go
right.
ahead and lead us through it.
For the record, my name's George Schnee. I'm an architect with offices in Newton, Mass. And
I don't know.
we're
How do you
here
get to that screen?
tonight to discuss
It's quite fair, let's
informally some architectural design concepts. As was mentioned, the site plan has been approved, and now we're beginning to look at the building. So it's a four-building concept here that involves two buildings along Washington Street, a boulevard that enters the site and is on axis with the entrance of a residential, 22-unit residential building in the rear of the site, and then a fourth small office / potentially retail building on the left. There is actually a fifth building on the site as well. It's a small house that is part of the site plan, but we haven't addressed that as of yet. So this is just a couple of overall views from Washington Street. And so the concept here is, instead of one large, massive building, we took the approach of trying to break this into more distinct masses, such that we may get more of an organic, semi-urban kind of approach, where we have this mixed use happening. We have retail down below and then offices or residential above. We tried to break it into modules that, again, broke up the massing and gave some little bit of articulation at the roofscape. Some towers you can see, trying to flank the entrance to the boulevard with maybe two copper or aluminum colored copper roofs that would kind of mark the entrance, and then some tower features on the corners that you can see. And then in terms of flat elevations, this would, so just nomenclature, so the two buildings on the front are buildings 1 and 2. The building 1 is to the north. Building 2 is next to the gas station site. And then building 3 is the small office building, which I mentioned, and then building 4 is the residential building in the rear of the site. Trying to use a mixture of materials, including some brick. One thing we're looking at doing is it's kind of hard to see, I can zoom in, but a brick wainscot. Here you can see it a little better in this image. Trying to knit this together in a subtle way so it feels a little bit more like a unified development, and yet so the buildings can stand alone. So trying to bring some connectivity in here, but not to duplicate the building design across the board, because we think that would be run counter to really the whole scale idea of breaking things down. So this is building 3, the small building. It has a footprint of approximate
4,500.
4,500 square feet in 2 stories. Building, this is the residential building, it's a 3-story building. We've done some bump outs on the 2 sides of the building, and I do want to mention that we would like to try to lengthen this building by 2 feet in each direction in order to achieve that second level of articulation, which happens at this corner here. So we bumped it out in both directions and actually shifted. We have, if we go back to the site plan, we have a lot of territory over here, and so we would add the 4 feet in that direction only, kind of away from Depot Street. There's a pretty large green space here. So in this territory, we had some excess space, and we felt we could add the 4 feet to the building there. So
Now the square is red. I still don't know what that square is.
I don't know. There are a few weird colors. There's also a sea of blue here that we weren't sure about. But
That's when the detention pond overflows.
That's the water feature. So again, that's sort of the overall site. So let me just, again, building 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and then this small house would be building 5 eventually. So again, we're here more to talk about our first pass at the architecture and try to see if conceptually we're on the right track. We've done some annotated plans that are in the package that call out some, again, conceptual materials. They're keyed in. So you'll see in your package some just renderings and then some annotated elevations. Some brick, as I said, some synthetic copper. One thing I want to talk about is ethos. Drive it. I think in trying to bring in multiple materials here, we've got some clapboards on, we've got some brick. We do want to bring in a kind of a synthetic limestone feature, GFRG, glass fiber reinforced gypsum, or ethos. And we're trying to be judicious about how we would use it. Having the brick wainscot will protect it from snow removal equipment. That's usually the biggest concern about it. There are ways of articulating it, as you know, with reveals that can...
Can you spell that? EIFS?
EIFS. Drive It is or Stowe is a product name, EIFS, Exterior Insulation and Finish System. It's basically a stucco finish applied to foam. The nice thing about it is we can get a lot of the detail that we're trying to get at kind of a reasonable price point. So we have some cornices, some bracketing going on, changes in materials, a lot of corner spans, and it's really in many ways a reasonable material to consider. I know it's not generally what the town might be looking for, but I want to be upfront that we are looking at trying to use it.
So if I can just, just while you're on, so are you talking about like up here too? This
Yes.
whole frieze and those brackets? All
Brackets
that
would probably be 5
I'd really hate to see
No.
ethos brackets because
No, the brackets, in fact, I think we called them out as 5-pon. 5-pon is a FYPON. It's fiberglass, basically, paintable.
And just one other, I'm just curious. So does that say Easton? Is that? I was looking at the rendering, right? Which what I love, the brick what I loved, it looked like to me, it looked like an authentic town block. You know, you had clapboard or ephes, whatever, then you had brick all vertical. Right there. So, personally, so I love this. I love how that breaks, and that kind of goes back to what was there originally, or downtown, you know, as a building that came over town. But I thought I saw in one of the elevations that was eliminated and you had more, but I mean, maybe it was labeled.
We actually added more.
They don't have building 2 on this set, I don't think.
Okay. So, good. I just, on the street side, I like how that's separated. And I thought I saw a version of it where it was more horizontal, and to me, it just becomes
Or I guess it's-
less authentic and more just kind of typical commercial block.
Right, we added more brick.
Because the east elevation is 138, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So I could have sworn.
That's the east elevation we're looking at now.
Right, but
South,
see
north,
this, where's the
east,
east?
yeah, right here.
Right, but so see how that varies?
That's the other building though. See,
Yeah, but
he swapped the
Oh,
buildings.
no, okay, never mind, I got you,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, my bad.
Yeah,
I think I know how to read plans after 30.
Well,
So that top view, is staying?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's some brick, there's some clapboard, there's some ephes. This more neoclassical looking building would be in, again, trying to find some kind of a limestone type of material. And, you know, there's, again, true limestone is really, I think gonna be at a price point that can't be supported by the rents that a project like this can generate in its location. But we're trying to get a richness and some variety and put some money into, you know, some expensive roofing materials, the standing seam, which is recurrent. We have it on some of the gables back in here as well. So again, looking for little
ties it in nice.
elements that link this thing, knit it together a bit, but it's not the same thing everywhere.
so just to be clear, I understand you have a brick water table, or the brick that goes up the facade, is that full brick?
Not sure, we don't know yet. We
Because I
called
noticed
out
you-
thin brick. We said or thin brick.
Because I noticed you're doing eaves as along the headers and the banding.
Correct.
So that, I was
Oh,
wondering why you weren't
in
doing,
the-
I was
in the
wondering
brick-
why you weren't doing
Yeah,
precast
the
instead
brick
of.
facade, yes, that would be precast, those bands in the brick where we're.
Oh, it's
are laying it
mislabeled
up.
then. It's 1.1.
Can you zoom in on the, on building 1, Wayne?
I'm looking at the material legend, material,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at 1.4, it's 1.14. I missed the 1. So, yeah, no, my mistake. It is
Okay.
correctly labeled. I was reading,
Yeah, no
I
problem.
dropped the 1 out.
Yeah, so when it's laid up in the wall, that would be precast.
With
But-
brick.
Can you zoom in a little bit more?
Sure.
Just because you're using it. Oh, I can open it up. I'm sorry, I can do this.
I did this huge improvement.
You think? All those in favor?
Yeah, it's so
You like
much,
it?
so much better.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, thank you. A lot of work into it.
So again, you know, there's a lot going on. We're seeking variety here, and there's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
be
what I was just
obviously an evolution as we really get into the wall sections, and tenancy is the big wild card at this point in terms of how to deploy these modules that are, at this point, not grounded in firm tenancy and demising of the building. So, what we're trying to get is, I think, a conceptual, affirmation that we're on the right track, and knowing that things are going to shift and evolve as tenants really come into the picture.
As long as they shift for the better.
Well, and we'll only insist on tenants that allow us to do what we want.
Yeah, I mean, personally, when I first saw this, I thought this was a huge improvement. Because I can't help it, I'm a designer, so I think like that, and I'm like, I wanted to see a new neighborhood created there. And I'm biting my tongue because part of me wants to go, well, instead of this one, but we're not designers, we're, and it's your project, but I personally, I like the direction it's going in.
To George's point, I think that we need to kind of be on the same page with you guys, in that these are concepts, in that if a tenant wants 5,000 square feet and wants a single facade that isn't a brick, that would be something we just need to build into the flexibility of the plan, so we're not talking about, one of those facades and a half.
Right.
For a major tenant.
I think, because I'm assuming that, obviously that situation is more likely gonna come up after we have approved something.
That's my point.
So I think we just need to, we can work, put something in a decision, work together that
Yeah.
Right, that
any
comes in,
changes,
right.
we all have to powwow on.
Yeah.
Because, for example, just personally, I love that vertical brick, as I talked about. And if you were to come in and say, well, you know what, we have someone on the left, but they wanna do the whole building in EFS, I'm gonna have an issue with that, because that's not what I like about this is how it looks like a bunch of structures that came together.
Differentiated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, anyway, so you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, so we just have to continue, hopefully, through this process, you will understand the theme that the board enjoys and what we're trying to do for the town.
And that's what we wanted to get in
And
front of you
when-
as quickly as possible.
Right.
Because if we're going down the wrong path, which I don't think we are, we need to know that too. But I think that we can work with you cooperatively to get to this point where it's approved next meeting, so we don't have to worry about it.
Well, you need full plans to have it approved for the next meeting.
I was saying
I know.
this yesterday.
And I don't think poor George wants that pressure on him, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think a development like this, an approach would be to sort of develop design guidelines. In other words, a palette of materials that we can deploy. Generally, the conceptual elevations are what we, again, would like kind of, not tonight, but a go-ahead on. But something that fits within the parameters of some design guidelines that, say, include this list of materials that we put forth. And that's why.
But I think we need to tie it in tighter than that, because what I see here is a building that represents, or that what this building's trying to say, hey, I'm 5, or I'm 4, look at the building on the left, top left.
Yep.
I'm 4 different structures, and I like that.
You're talking about scale.
Not because it's different colors, because it's different textures, it's set back, it's broken up, it's different styles. So I'm just speaking for Greg Strange. So I go, okay, I like that. I approve that. And so I might say, okay, well, okay, I'm fine. I'm not a big fan of EFS crown molding, but okay, fine. I'll pick our poison. But then when up the road, if we just have a palette of materials, well, we come in, the problem with that is, well, that palette needs to also include an explanation of varied facade broken up. And I wouldn't want to see this building on the left, for example, come in and all of a sudden it's one unified facade. And so, but it's by approved material, so
No.
we need to,
Yeah.
I just want us all to be on the same
Right,
page.
no, and I think there would be exhibits, that would be attached to the decision, and the building inspector, I would think, would be the gatekeeper at some point and say, hey, well, this doesn't really, it's not close enough.
Well, no, we'll be the
Go back to the
gatekeeper.
building.
Any change, I mean, in the decision, I'll tell you, any changes to the exterior come before us before we apply for a permit, I'll tell you that right now. And if anything, during construction, any changes, I mean, that's already been discussed in-house, and that, this is first time we've done a project like this, and that, we're not giving up control of that, we have to keep it there, because otherwise it just won't, it gets too chaotic, the building inspector has enough going on.
So if I can.
They don't want architectural approval.
And I think because you don't wanna get to that point where you're, submitting a permit, and then I look at it and go, this is, and, you wanna do that ahead of time. If you have a potential tenant that, and I think this is what Greg just said, a potential tenant that wants something a little different, let's come in with the concept that it meets it.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is like, this becomes the design guideline, is kind of what I.
Yeah, and by necessity, we had to be a bit arbitrary here, because we didn't know, we still don't know. And it was actually,
It's really just building 1 and 2 we're talking about, like building, like we can kind of, I think, hope wrap up building 3 and 4, saying that those are fine, those aren't gonna be, those would stay exactly how they are, because I'm gonna occupy building 3 myself on the 2nd floor and just have retail, so that would be exactly how we want it as it sits today. So if you really have any comments on building 3, I'd love to hear that. And then on building 4, I think that's a done deal too, in my opinion, the way I would like to see it built. I think the designs, I think he hit a home run, in all honesty, with the design on the apartment building. So it really, you're talking about building 1 and 2 when you're talking about any small modifications. And I think that when you talk about building 1 and 2 on the changes, we're talking about on the first floor only. So like, if someone wanted a facade that took over like 3 or 4 of those different segments on the bottom, maybe we make the facade the same on those 3 segments on building 1 or 2. Go to building 1 and 2.
You know, and
I
your
think
tenant may not care.
And then up top, right, they may not.
Yeah, see, you know, what I'm
No,
troubled by
they-
here, I gotta be honest with you, because to me, building 1 and building 2 are the most important buildings on the site.
I couldn't agree more.
And,
I couldn't agree more.
and so, and to Stephanie, you know, it's okay to tell, you know, I don't know, you know, how many tenants, you know, this
It's
is,
the
we're not,
interior generally.
well, we're not
Yeah,
on
it's the
Fifth Avenue,
interior.
New York, where they're paying, you know, 5,000 a square foot. They're, you know, I can't think of many tenants that are gonna mind
Having a
that
different
part of their facade is limestone or faux limestone, and part of it is brick or something. And because my concern, what you just said, saying, oh, well, because if you change, that building has 4 sections. If you change 3 of them to be one finish, that whole building in brick is now a totally different building and not something that.
So Greg, on building 1 on the right, see how there's brick on the bottom and clap on the 2nd floor?
Yeah.
If someone wanted brick across the bottom and do clap on the 2nd floor, it would change the look, but you'd still have the different architectural looks, and that's all I was kind of suggesting. That the first floor maybe would be different. And I agree with what you're saying, that I don't think it's as big of a deal as we're kind of making it out to right now.
Right.
Because I think
Right.
tenants will
We
take
just
that bottom spot. But to my original point on building 3, which is the yellow building, and building 4, I think those ones, and personally, if you guys have comments on those, because I don't think those are gonna change at all. Building 1 and 2, I love how they are right now. If we can find tenants that won't wanna make any modifications to the outside, I'd be fine with that, because I think he hit a home run on the
Yeah,
project.
if you could go back to the rendering for a second, and
Sure.
just while we're all together,
Yeah,
so
sure.
we can all remember this, like, what I think's so important about this, right, on these guys. Here's 1, 2, 3, it's 4 buildings. I like that. I think it works great. And to use what you were just talking about, so let's, you know, all of a sudden, if you take this, and okay, you know, I like this better than this, but it's subjective. I get it. But yeah, if tenant came in, all of a sudden you were gonna do this whole bottom in brick, if that's what we just said. I'm like, but see, it goes from being a city block, which I
Yep.
think
To
is
being
great,
very
to now it's
modular.
just another commercial building.
Gotcha.
And I think you'd be harming your product, frankly, doing
Right.
that. So I guess I'm just trying to say, you know what, I think your team, you've put together a terrific effort here.
Yep.
Stick to your guns,
Yep.
you know? Tell Chuck E. Cheese they just got
And again, it's the interior space that.
That really is that, yeah.
Right, entrances are probably gonna shift.
That look of, a mix of buildings can belie the interior that
Yeah.
might be all 1 floor.
Exactly.
For someone.
No, I agree.
Right, I mean, we did purposefully, thinking that there may be a larger tenant on this corner, make that module a little larger and brought the brick in. Thinking, you know, we're trying to anticipate a little bit, but we still, I think, do have the separate look, separate building look, which we all want, I think.
Yeah, and that's why that's what I'm just trying to stress, because I think
no, we
that's,
wanted
I
to-
think that's why this is successful.
Yep.
You know, in my opinion, you know.
Can I ask a question?
No,
to the board?
I wasn't looking deliberately.
Of course.
So this is a question for the board. Does anyone else, I like the yellow building. I love the front of the yellow building. I'm concerned that the back, it's.
Yeah, but you don't see it, there's a big.
There's a gas station in front of it.
Oh, I forgot about the gas
Yeah,
station.
you forgot about the.
Can you
I'm
do
like,
this
why
to the
isn't
gas
that good?
station also while you're doing
Oh,
this?
that was what I was
Yeah,
thinking
we didn't
earlier.
we didn't
Boy,
drop
it'd
in
be
the,
nice
the
when we can-
beautiful gas
Don't
station.
see, don't, there's a reason there's not windows in that
Yeah,
building.
okay, I believe that.
Yeah.
There are not, I didn't say that right, did I?
We do actually, plan a line of plantings across.
Yeah, well, I saw some.
Oh, you know what,
plantings
can you
that
take
was,
the old shingles from the roof, put vetoes? Red
There you
vetoes.
go. There you go.
Well, and given that
I
the
will
gas
miss that,
station
yeah.
doesn't seem like it's moving, I don't think it's really necessary to probably design to like a different
Right.
potential. But I mean, there are like plenty of examples now where, you know, there's some sort of treatment to basically the back of a building because that's where the main road is and really everything's centrally located. So I'm sure there's things that could be
Yeah, I
done, but
mean-
it's not really applicable, I don't think.
It's
given
tough.
the-
I mean, it's a small building. It's only a 40-foot deep. So I put the core, egress stairs on the back. Utility rooms are on the back. There's an elevator. So they're.
and if the gas station ever sells, Ed's gonna buy it, right?
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's not much, we only have, what, 15 feet there, or 10 feet,
No,
right? So it's-
exactly, yeah.
There's not much room,
No.
but I think it's important to get some plantings. But I think to your point, you're thinking maybe trellises or fake windows. Or
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I think that your palette of materials seems appropriate and good, and I think there's a little bit of variation between the building you want to occupy and the residential building, and the other two kind of maintain more varied. But it's all a pretty good mix, because like they still, I think the two more plain buildings do have like a more residential, it's more clapboard. You could probably, I don't really think it's necessary. I mean, I think that the building you're gonna occupy is is a lot more plain, but I think that that's okay. It's
Yeah.
like kind of the backdrop for the rest of
Yeah, and I
it,
think
but
to your point on that building, it's part of that Depot Street neighborhood, so I think it ties in nicely having it all unified and not have all these different looks
Yeah.
out there.
What, signage, looking at the, what kind of, how are these external, are you gonna propose internally illuminated signs, or are you gonna,
I called it.
like halo signs?
Either halo or
We have
LED channel letters.
in the bylaw, in the overlay district, we have a signage requirement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they need to meet that.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, you're familiar with the overlay district has a
Signage
requirement
bylaw,
for
yeah.
signage and other design requirements, right?
Yeah,
We just
Okay.
wanna build it, this is a first pass, and we're trying to build in as much flexibility as we possibly can.
Sure.
It might be things that we wanna tweak, because they're more in keeping with this design, but this is our first pass.
trying to show a sign band, I was pretty arbitrary about where I just.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
at
but
the end of the day, we're gonna want it to comply with the zoning bylaw, though, right?
Well, or yet, if we need to, we'll come back and
Yeah.
seek relief. I mean, there may be a tenant
Right,
that
exactly.
insists on a 36-inch high sign, and we'll have to say.
There's a
that-
mechanism for that, yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah, so we may need variances, or relief on that, but at this point, I'm really just trying to show that there's a sign ban.
yeah, this
Right.
this particular building here, Scott's Liquors is gonna be moving into this building temporarily while building 2 is being constructed. And then he wants to go back to the front of building 2, facing 138, so that's already been decided.
So, I just wanna stress, because the word sign variance kind of scares me. And again, because one of the reasons we have architectural approval, because you know what happens, and I know it won't happen here, but so often, so in town, we have basically, it's a special permit process for internally illuminated signs, because for years it wasn't allowed. Because you know what happens? Tenant A calls Joe's Sign Company, and they come out, and you know, here in the rendering, it's nice, it says signage in the sign band.
Yeah.
We seem to have a plethora of sign companies that don't use sign bands, or, you know, they come in, they've done the tenant doesn't No, he just thinks it's a piece of cake. He's already upset because he has to go before the planning board. He didn't know he had to do that. Why can't I just have a sign? And it's the least expensive version of some, big sign box or something. So we've worked really hard. And so, to Wayne's point, to me, there's no reason, especially for the process that we're going through, there's no reason to have any type of sign variance, because the allowances are more than ample. And what I want to see, and during the site plan, when we said, okay, we'll push off the site. But I don't want to we can't keep kicking everything up the road, because then we're going to have conflict.
Well, we
Because
understand
just
that.
let me finish. So what I want to make sure, I want to, I'm just saying here and now that I want the signs on the building to have a unified presence.
So do I, by the way. It's not-
And
it's
so
not-
I don't,
Yeah.
there's no need for variance, because we're not gonna put any 6-foot letters anywhere, so,
No, I think it's a classier look when it's unified.
Yeah, it's gonna be better, and you need that, look at that, yes, to do anything other than that here,
Yeah.
and that's right, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, it's exactly what I want.
And that's what we're trying to show, actually.
Yeah.
Is there will be a sign standard that will be communicated to
And
tenants.
it'll be called out in a marketing profile for anybody who's, so they know what they're
So
getting.
we should,
Sure.
when do we get to see that? That's, so, yeah, we do. So that's definitely part of it. To me, exterior approval, because we've kicked some of the stuff that we do in site plan, so we have the signs around the property,
Yeah.
right? The look of them, how we're gonna, and we need to, but, so we don't wanna push all this stuff up to date, because you know what, you're gonna get building, you're gonna get busy, and so we need to nail down some of this stuff
Okay,
now.
so are you suggesting that we continue down this path and maybe add some more detail in terms of?
Well, I can see, sort of what we did at Queesit. So the building, we're on a good path there, I think, building wise, right? We're talking about, so what else are we gonna be talking? Signs on the building,
Yep.
signs off of the building,
Lighting.
lighting, things that we remember the
Yeah.
things just 2 weeks ago during the site plan.
Yep.
We kicked out. Let's try to package some of this so that we're not, So I don't, I'm all for expediting things, but we don't want to leave stuff everywhere, because then
That was the purpose of this.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to
That's very helpful,
express.
thank you.
First the parameters of that stuff, and then even, and feel board members feel, what I was talking about before, my thoughts on the exterior, some of the things that why I like the direction it's going in. So I'm hoping those sorts of things don't change, and
Yeah.
that can't all be handled with just a schedule of finishes, So
Yep, no,
just trying to get it all out now.
that makes sense.
Well, I think that the informal but planned relationship that you have between the two anchor buildings as you enter in, and then with the backdrop of like an invitation into the residential is really strong. So I think, like you said, maybe we don't really want a lot of variation, or deviation from what's already here, but you probably have some elements that are key elements that you'd want to maintain regardless of what tenant goes in. And the only other thing I was going to mention is you're not showing any awnings. Like, are those intentionally excluded, or?
Yeah, it's on my list, actually. So, we don't know. We actually did draw another scheme that did have awnings, and it was part of another scheme, so we sort of didn't add them to this, also for clarity. But we have, some transom windows that we might be able to. There's some height here. We're trying to keep an 18-foot floor to floor for the ground level, so we have quite a bit of height to work with. Awnings are a device that we've talked about. It runs a little counter, I think, to this concept, which is a little more urban almost. I hate to use the word urban in Easton, but
Yeah.
in a way, we're looking for kind of more of a streetscape, and awnings may not be.
And you don't have a lot of diverse light exposure here, anyways. You don't have a lot of direct south, thanks to the gas station. And yeah, I'm with. To me, I like that there's not awnings on this.
Trellises or some kind of canopy. A lot of retailers are just getting away from canopies. They're kind of just a problem with leakage, and we're not. This isn't kind of a strip center where you have a lot of need for cover. It's not that big, and walking to get from building to building that frequently. And so we were sort of not going in the awning direction with this scheme. It's a little bit maybe light in terms of material, light versus heavy, I guess, flimsy almost. But we did look at it, and you know, I will say in one of the schemes it didn't look terrible, but it just
Changed the look,
didn't
though.
seem
Yeah.
necessary.
Yep.
It sort of
Well, I like it with that, but we were talking about signage, and then you were talking about what kind of tenants you might have, and I was thinking about ways that you unify buildings without changing the facade, and maybe one of that is through the awnings, or maybe it's sunscreens, or
right.
I don't know. So we hadn't talked about it at all, so I
Right,
just
and
wanted to.
that level, you know, there are, as things evolve, there will be textural things like that I think we'll wanna introduce, or a tenant may want to see, and then come back and I mean, they're sort of, you know, there was a site plan, and then there's overall architecture, and, you know, there are layers here that are gonna have to be studied further, and will be informed again by tenants to some extent.
How do you intend on addressing the entrance issues as related to parking for tenant entrances versus the front of the building?
Well, that's been sort of the major kind of planning issue with this project. When
Yeah.
when we lost the parking in the parking in the front, it suggests rear entrances. There are sidewalks that can connect, and for some of the smaller tenants, they may have a Washington Street entrance that will have to be negotiated. But as you remember in the site plan, what we did was we did try to bring parking into this boulevard area. So
Mhm.
we do get some
Can
parking.
you zoom in on that?
Sure.
please?
Yeah.
We get some parking closer to the front of the building.
So,
So, you know,
so-
these spots.
and you know, the reason that I'm asking the question is because I think what I'd be concerned with is that some tenant goes in there and decides they're gonna stack their boxes against the Washington Street side because they wanna bring the entrance off the parking, you know, maintaining, in other words, you know, a liquor store goes in and all of a sudden they want their store layout to be faced towards the parking. I would be concerned in how you're gonna deal with that so that the facade on 138, and maybe we're getting too detailed for this conversation,
No,
but
but
I'd be,
Yeah, it is a good question.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, because the tenant is not necessarily gonna wanna use the space the way it's orientated, but how do you intend on kind of keeping that street facade as a street facade?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I think that the towns are gonna have to just abide by what we want
I
them to
think
do.
we are gonna have rules and regulations, obviously. We're gonna just have to enforce them, but everything should be oriented toward, at least that end should be oriented toward Washington Street, regardless of where the main exit or entrance is.
So as part of these ordinances that you're developing for the tenants, you'll be sharing those with the board as far as the ability to, you know, understand how that process is gonna work.
I don't think we're there yet, but it's a good point. I appreciate you bringing it up, because these are things that we have to think about as we think about tenant mix, we think about exits, entries,
Yeah.
signage, all of that stuff.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it might be dependent on the future growth of 138 and what gets developed, because if there were more connections and that sidewalk that we've talked about, and you know, continuity going up and down, well then there's gonna be people who are walking along that portion, whereas now it's, you know,
Sure, you and I would love to see that.
car
right?
oriented, right.
But, you know, does that get translated to the business owner?
Yeah.
that's leasing
That
the
would really
space?
be a shame, though, if those front facades that we're liking so much are now the back of the building.
So building one, we're hoping that that front facade is all like a dining area, in all honesty. We're hoping that we can break that up into two different restaurants.
Mhm.
And have in the middle of that in the middle of that T, the long part of the T is utilities in kitchens and things of that nature, have two decent-sized restaurants, one front, one back. So that's the goal there. And then building two, that front left-hand corner from the way we're looking at it, the liquor store is gonna take that front left-hand corner, and I don't know how far he'll go into the middle of that building, cause it's gonna be roughly, he's looking for roughly 25 to 2,600 square feet. So his tenants.
So say that one, could you just repeat that one more time?
So if you could draw a line, maybe, George will show him, even if you'd like try to enlarge it with that box. So
So here, there was a tenant that would take about this.
Scott's Liquors.
Yeah.
So you may introduce actually a corridor there
So
off
he-
that sidewalk to catch,
Yeah,
catch that southernmost
So there,
portion.
yeah, so actually we're gonna have an entrance just to the,
Yeah.
where it says entry there.
Yeah.
We have entries.
There's gonna be an entry there for the residents upstairs as well. So, and then that back right-hand corner,
Mm-hmm.
we have some ideas of, other areas of going in there. I don't know if anyone has heard of like, solar salons. They're like, individual, booths that people can, like, a stylist can rent on their own, and they're all individual ones. And we were thinking about maybe developing that ourselves into that right corner, cause we know it's not as a desirable location for retail per se, but from a service perspective, might be a nice spot. So we were thinking of that for that corner as well, so that may solve that problem.
Okay, so you are addressing it, you're thinking about
Yeah, I
it.
mean,
That's
we're-
pretty much what I wanted to know, that, you know.
Yeah, we are, yep.
You know, truly though, and that is the tricky part of this site plan.
Yeah.
That when we took the parking off the front, it creates that issue, and it's a challenge. You know, I think what we've tried to do, I'm gonna. So, this is a little premature to show, but, what we're showing is like a core for residential entrance here, and then there would be some kind of entry that would feed into the
Scott's Liquors, yeah.
the liquor store. Here, similarly, a core that feeds into a restaurant perhaps, and then put some kitchen and core functions internally. And then a second entrance system back in here for potentially, hopefully, another restaurant. And, you know, similarly on the, what I was talking about with some of the core functions on building 3 back in here, facing the gas station. So we've begun thinking about it, but again, we're a bit in a vacuum, and we'll be able to address some of these concerns as things get more real. But legitimate, totally legitimate question.
That's what we specialize in here at Easton Planning and Zoning Board.
No.
Totally legitimate questions. All right.
So one quick question, Greg, on the architectural approval side of things, I know we're still a ways from that, but you had mentioned you need complete plans. You're not talking about interior footprints, correct?
We have nothing to do with the interior.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Other than,
So when you say complete plans, like
exits,
this would be almost
entrances.
like a complete plan, but just we have to finalize it in more detail?
This is a facade drawing.
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's a rendering.
Right,
I
right,
mean, we need to, I mean,
Well,
we need dimensions,
so
you know,
just-
elevations,
Yeah, yeah.
by height elevations as
So
well.
we have
as
all
things.
that,
Yeah.
but just not showing it.
I mean, we need
no.
working drawings of the exterior.
Of course.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily need the flashing details, you know.
Right, okay,
but, you know.
yep.
So if I'm just gonna call, and these are still in and of themselves broad, but, so on the draft of the decision for the site plan approval, what we identify as not being approved and will be approved subsequently. So aspects not approved at this time: detailed architectural design plans depicting elevations of the individual buildings, building signs, canopies, and/or other building accessories, detailed landscaping plans, and selection of a specific plant species, sidewalk and streetscape details at each building, including locations of sidewalk amenities, including park benches, trash receptacles, and exterior lighting. And then we talk about the final location of residential units, including number and composition of affordable units, building designs to demonstrate bylaw compliance of bedrooms and location of affordable units, selection of affordable housing monitoring agent. So that's just, yeah,
Lighting.
there's a lot.
There's,
the
there's a few
lighting
more
plan,
things to go.
yeah.
So, but anyways, so,
Yeah, we have exterior lighting.
yeah, so, I mean, we still, I mean, there's plenty of time, because just,
Yeah.
we have to do a public hearing.
Yep, no
or two,
problem.
you
Yep.
know. Are you gonna file for that soon, or?
It is, they have, they're on the next, yeah.
What is it?
Oh, well, I haven't peeked
2
ahead at
weeks.
the next agenda.
The 28th.
I thought it was, I thought it was next, I thought it was Friday, no?
You almost got me on that one, Paul.
So for that purpose, do you see it, maybe some more dimensions, but do you see that we need additional exhibits like wall sections at that point?
No, we don't, I mean, we don't need, I don't think we need wall sections at all. As long as, I mean, the elevations, materials are called out.
Yep.
Someone said
Right.
working drawings of exterior.
Well,
Yeah, but
well,
that, but I
think-
mean,
That's
but,
later.
I mean, cause what I see here so far, I see renderings and I see sort of presentation elevations.
Right.
But we need, you know, we need heights on that, we need, you know, some, you know.
There's
win-
some heights on
windows
here.
called out, you
I
know.
think a
We just
few,
need a little more
you know,
detail.
top of
Yeah.
roofs and things of that.
Yeah, we don't have a say on the
We can go
interior.
to town dimensioning, that's easy. I'm just trying to, you know, plan, for the next meeting and.
Yeah, and I mean, 'cause we're not gonna wrap it up in one meeting, so, you know,
And-
it'll be,
Well,
This tells a story.
and can I
to
ask
the
another
public.
question? Because again, I was really surprised when you came back and asked, you know, you wanted to start this next phase. And I think tonight's meeting really made a lot of sense, having a discussion before approval. We haven't even finalized the decision from the site plan. And the purpose of doing this ahead of any architectural approvals and everything was so you could get the site work going. I mean, is there a rush on this?
yeah, we're putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Cause here's what, cause think about this, so not only, we don't want just the building, I mean, we need to see sign example, both on the building and on the site, we gotta wrap that stuff up, I don't wanna stretch this out
Did you
into
say
8 different
sign-
sections.
signage?
Yeah, signage on the building and also site signage, which I don't, that may not be scope of your work, I don't know.
Yep.
And then all those things that Stephanie talked about, so we've gotta get all that done in this part, so,
No, I
you
think,
know.
I think he caught
and
up to
maybe
us,
the way
Stephanie
to-
didn't finish to George, he kinda
Yeah.
like, so when we were working with
Yeah.
Scott in Homewood on the site work,
Right.
I had him working on all this in the background,
Yeah.
so I wanted to get him in front of you guys to get some feedback.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
and maybe
Much.
that's what the next several meetings should be. I mean, it will be as a hearing, but understand that
Correct.
you can come in
Yeah.
and review things with the board and get their feedback. So then when the final documents are done,
Yeah.
or you need to get to that point.
Yeah, or, I mean, if you'd rather not do it as a hearing too, you just take extra time, work on it, and then come in at once, it might be less of your time needed.
Well, I think we've already advertised the hearing, so at least, let's open it up.
Yeah, I
Sure,
don't think at
okay.
this point it right,
Yeah,
yeah. But and what I'm saying, you said 1 or 2 meetings, and I know, Greg, that, you know, I know you're thinking, we are not going to rush this. And
well, we
you
just don't have, I don't think
you
you're gonna
don't-
have
and
everything we
There's no
need
need to,
fast enough to do it in 1 or 2 meetings if we
yeah.
take 3 weeks off in between. maybe,
I think it's
you know.
gonna depend on George's schedule, I think it's gonna be,
Yeah.
depending on the feedback we'll get at the
And I think
next
this was important to check in, I mean, right, you wanted to see, you know, right, so after this, we're not, it's not holding anything up. So, let's do it right, let's get a nice package, and so that way, cause we're gonna be very happy in the future, cause if we, and you'll thank us, because you know, if otherwise it's gonna, when you're ready to go and like, hey, we never approved that sign, that's, you know, well, it's gonna be a drag. And do you really think all the stores are gonna be called signage?
A lot of sign shops.
Some of them are gonna be called tenant.
Oh, there's font.
I mean,
Or restaurant.
Yeah, just to summarize, I haven't heard that there's anything that's objectionable that we've seen. I think the thing that was objected to is maybe too much changing from what you're seeing. as I said, because tenants may shift, there was a concern that maybe it's gonna change too much or get too unified, and so we heard that. Seems like you need detail on the lighting, building lighting if we're gonna do any, sconces, I guess, and then site lighting, so.
Yeah, Scott's, Holmgren's working on that.
And, you know, getting more specific on the signage guidelines that we will be in a position then to present to tenants as this is the sign guidelines that have been approved.
And again, the detailed landscaping plans, when you're talking the, Scott's working on placement and location of lighting, right? But the,
A landscape architect
the
will have to
feet,
be.
right, what those fixtures are
Right, of
actually
course.
going to look
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because that's another critical piece. You
Yeah.
put up the wrong fixture and
Yeah, everything
it
goes.
really
Yeah.
spoils.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because it is interesting from a lighting standpoint, how do you separate, you know, you have the commercial building, which wants to be lit one way, but then you have that residence, you know, and you know, you don't wanna wash that. We always worry about light pollution off the site, but you don't wanna wash all the front of that building and,
Onto
you know.
the site.
Yeah, I think there may be some bollard lighting and some sconces at the building, and then some pole lighting for the parking. And I think you need to see all three of those fixtures.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I imagine there has to be some sort of pole lighting around the, what are we calling it?
Shovel.
Can't call it the shovel. Maybe the shovel can light it.
Roundabout is, circle.
No, you know, roundabout doesn't do it at the square, but it's round.
Right.
The rotary.
Circle gets a square. Square gets a circle.
So as far as materials, are you going to represent the colors that you're proposing for the materials via the elevations like we have here? So the spandrel glass will be the color that you're showing on the elevations, or is that what you're intending, or how do you?
That is what we're intending, yeah. And George, I don't know if you wanna speak to.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we're gonna use a clear glass, below, and then.
Yeah, I understood that the clear glass,
Right.
yeah, that was a rendering technique, but more specifically, the spandrel glass and the aluminum frames, they're not designated on here, so are you gonna tell us what those colors are, or are we to derive them from the elevations?
A sample palette could be nice.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So you wanna talk about 123 Depot?
Oh, yeah.
Are we done with, we good
We
with
need
that?
to vote to continue, or no, is this?
No.
This is not an area
Just a
to
discussion.
We're just shucking and jiving.
Next,
Yeah,
next.
yeah.
So,
That's
can
right.
I'm just trying to organize, what the expectation will be for this first public hearing. So, the sample palette, for example, is that needed for the first meeting or for final approval?
Well, I'd leave that
I mean, I
up to
can-
you. I think that
I can
at some
call 'em out,
point,
but-
I will speak for myself, that I would like to see a clear definition of the materials at some point during the process. How you present that
You
during
wanna
the process
visualize.
is kind of
Yeah,
up to
I'm
you.
just trying to figure out what point during the process, I'm just, you know, I don't know if we can.
Maybe next time we can call out the
I can
colors
label
and
stuff.
Yeah,
I
and
can
then
add,
we can say,
you know,
you know, if you guys are on board, we don't wanna go through.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
is it mill
fine.
finish or is it dark bronze or medium bronze?
Right.
A Conair system, something like that. And then if that seems okay, then we pull
Yeah.
together physical samples of all that stuff.
Sure.
And the light fixture cuts, that's easy to
Yeah.
pull together. At some point, we might get big enough development, get a supplier to give us a fixture and bring it in and show you how it looks.
I'm sure they'd be happy to give you a picture to bring
So,
in.
so, I mean, this is a multi-step process, so, I guess the other flip side of saying, what I'm trying to say is, I think we'd like to generally present what you're seeing today to the
Mhm.
public, first public hearing. We'll add some heights and add some notes and a little more detail, and then keep filling in with the detail that you're looking for.
That works
The
for me.
pylon sign, if there's a monument sign, what the detail is on that, so.
Shovel.
I mean, I think we're trying to get the general building,
Yeah.
design, figure
Yeah,
it
I
out.
would just
Well, I agree, we shouldn't,
That ties
I
into the
wouldn't-
marketing and the tendency.
Right. I was just saying, like, the signage, I wanna tie that up during this process, that's why I brought it up, just so.
I think what he's gonna, because we wanna go to we wanna put a brochure together, start marketing, so I think we're comfortable doing that after hearing everyone's comments, they're using these renderings to do that. So we'll move forward with that way we can hopefully lock up some tenants.
All right,
Great.
are we all ready to move on to the next part?
Sure.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
sounds good.
This has to do with the house.
Does everybody know the background of 123?
I don't think they
Probably
do,
not.
no.
I think
I haven't
just
spoken to
Greg-
anybody.
Greg and I and anyone who's driven by.
So, very basically, 123 is the house component to this
Yeah.
development. And what Ed had done was allowed it to be occupied on a short-term basis, and in order to do that, he wanted to do some simple rehabilitation. Unfortunately, the simple rehabilitation, the contractor didn't pull a permit for, so Ed was stopped. So the mea culpa went out to Mark, Stephanie, and Greg informally about, hey, look, we didn't know we had to do it. And at what point?
It was siding.
It was
The
siding.
guy tore off siding without pulling the permit.
Yeah.
So right now it's
And-
Tyvek.
Well, in the front porch, I don't know that required a permit.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. So we have to deal with it in the context of this development, so that's why it's in front of you folks today. What's the ultimate plan then?
So we would like to just be able to put siding back on the house. It's, we wanna put AZAC on the corner boards and vinyl side, the existing color. And we're only doing 3 sides of the house, cause the back side of the house were existing wood shingles that were in fine condition, just needs to be repainted. But the front and the 2 sides were in rough shape and were a lot of rot, so we, hired a guy to do it. I had the dumpster delivered and he didn't go ahead and pull the permit and did it without telling me, so,
And will you be doing these next buildings the same way?
Yes.
So Ed asked me to go out, we went out there last week, and Google's not working for some reason on my phone, but so the house, so if you remember the barn was coming down, there's the shed, I think you call it, is staying, that's clapboard,
Yep.
leaving it as is. House is out, it has crown molding, rakes, they're keeping all that, the windows are staying, there's a little pediment, there's like a 5/4 trim detail. The back house is actually shingled, that's staying. So and then there was a porch on the front, which clearly had been added, cause it's a nice sort of Carpenter Gothic, original, and there was just a little flat roof. Yeah, I mean, I think I like it better without it, cause it looks, but that's just me.
actually, we found a really nice piece of granite underneath the old porch.
Yeah,
that was
buried.
there from
It was
the
a gorgeous
original.
piece of
Yeah,
granite.
yeah.
And so Ed said, he was looking, he said, he found this nice red, cause the house is red, he found this red,
Match perfect, yeah.
and he said, but, whatever you guys want, blah, blah, and I said, well, if you already bought them, I said, well, I said, in keeping with, it is a nice house, I'd like to at least see, I recommend at least doing AZAC, solid corners, cause, vinyl corners don't.
Yep.
But he also said if, he said, hey, if you guys want wood, if you want,
Gypsum.
yeah, hardy board, he'll, do it, so, I said, well, let's see what the board feels, so, anyways, that's, so you can say, yeah, it's pulled out, it's a gorgeous, and the door has an antique 150-year-old doorbell on it. You didn't even know, it's really, a little crank one.
You know how many people I've showed since then? It's insane.
It's brutal. I've never seen one of
I've
those. I
never
did some
seen one.
research on it. It's pretty interesting. Company out of Pepperell made it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the trim is stayed.
And then the front steps, I wanna replace with, prefab, granite that would just drop down on it. It's like,
Granite curbing?
yeah, but it's.
They're like slabs. Slabs of
Yeah,
granite.
yeah.
It would be no loss to see that porch gone, yeah.
Well, you'd be happy if you went up there.
Your wish is our command.
Can I
And
see
there's
it?
there's actually a brick
sure.
foundation.
Yeah,
so
I
that's
because I
looking
can't
brick
remember.
foundation.
Okay,
Wanna
yeah,
switch
yeah, yeah.
Plug
Yeah.
that into?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have internet.
I don't have HDMI on my
So
iPad.
what we need to understand.
I can
Hold it
pull
up.
it up. Is that Google
What your
Earth?
preference
Yeah,
There's
is.
Tyvek on there now, I just wanna get it recycled.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely have a strong preference for going with like a hardy board or or natural material. I'm okay with the AZAC corner boards and trim and
Yep.
that kind of thing, but
And that's consistent with what we're proposing for the
Correct.
other building.
Yep.
Um,
No, I'm fine with it.
We're definitely not using wood trim. It's all
yeah.
AZEK or
Yeah.
equal,
Yeah, it just doesn't last like it used to, does
No.
it? Early growth trees and finger joints.
So I'm not sure what you guys have to do in terms of making some type of decision relative to this.
I think we
Such a
could,
one-off.
I think we could vote on, if we come to consensus, we could vote on something and then just send a note to the building inspector. Right, Stephanie, do you think? Cause this is,
And I
this is
spoke-
sort of kind of a gray
I
area.
spoke to Kevin before the meeting too, and he said just, they need to let me know.
Yeah,
Yep.
So you're keeping the pediments over the windows?
Thanks,
The
Chris.
little-
yeah, the only thing that's come down is the
Taking
porch
the little-
and the clapboard.
No, those pediments aren't, those are all rotted out.
Are you gonna replace them though?
Yeah, but they're gonna be replaced with the.
You're gonna keep it visually the same?
AZEK,
So these, I'm talking about the little,
The trim.
I'm sorry,
Do they
everybody.
make that in AZAC?
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
wood, it's just a wood trim
You
detail.
build up a piece of,
Okay, yeah, we can definitely add
So
something.
they do make it in AZAC.
They do? Yeah,
And
yeah.
Andy's lumber has it,
Okay, yeah.
supporting local business,
so I
but
would
you
do
can
that.
go anywhere you want.
this week over.
Cause that line actually adds a lot to the window, and I think.
I
so.
agree.
Yeah,
You know, it would be a shame to just see it flat.
Yeah, and it's only 7 windows.
yeah.
Especially the front facade, I would say.
Yeah.
So just add that on the front only? Cause I think there's what, 1, 2, 3 other, maybe 4 or 5 other windows off the sides.
1, 2,
You got two
3,
that face
4,
the,
5, 6, 7, yeah.
I think there's 2 that face the side neighbor and 2 or 3 that face the other side. Do you see them on that plan?
I'm looking,
Okay.
It would
Well, I
be,
mean, I
it would be
think-
nice to do them on all of
I
them.
think you
Yeah.
need to do the
You know.
sides too.
See, and maybe I
sorry,
misunderstood, I thought, I
Because
didn't mean to
that-
misrepresent that, I thought
you see
you were
that,
keeping what was
that's
there.
pretty visible.
Yeah, okay.
That'll be right across from you.
Right, exactly. We'll be looking out at it.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
The only thing about Hardy is, I don't know if they make a 4-inch to weather lap siding. I think it's 5-inch minimum, which is gonna be a little large for this building.
Yeah.
I had to
It
check.
doesn't have to be hardy, but I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
there's,
what
what's that other,
LP.
um,
Um,
there's one that Cape Cod lumber is carrying these days, I'm trying to think, I should
The
know.
synthetic clap.
Yeah, it's, well,
like, yeah.
a composite
Yeah.
material,
composite, yeah.
not,
Alright, we'll
not
look-
a,
we'll-
not a
we'll- we'll
PVC
research on that.
plastic type, but,
So you need to have that in the decision before you approve it, or what, how do you want us to handle these, spec sheet?
So we're gonna do a synthetic, is that what we're agreeing on, a synthetic cementous?
Hardy type, hardy backer
Hardy or
type.
equal.
Hardy or, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And,
I think, I agree with you though, that 4 inches to weather doesn't.
yeah, you don't wanna go bigger than
I
4
mean,
inches.
for these big buildings,
Right.
we're thinking the 5-inch to weather.
That's fine, yeah.
I think so too.
Plus, you wanna break this out from those buildings anyways.
Right.
You know?
But,
What the hell happened to Google Earth?
we'll find it. Not
Is there a
five.
water table on this?
No.
No,
That's a modern,
Is
Yeah,
it?
it is.
yeah. They used to get a frost roll.
Right.
in the days, that was it, you know? Yeah, so we can, I mean, so is that what?
And then as far as the site work on that property, what was approved on the site plan was part of that, was adding the driveway on facing Depot Street, on the left side of the house instead of the right. So we wanna make sure that it's okay to start that work as well. So I have a tenant, we're looking to move in there. It's a family friend, an elderly woman and her.
There's no reason why you couldn't do that, right, once we issue the decision? Put a
Right.
driveway in?
Right.
That could actually be in the decision, right?
Well, it's in the plans.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
on
it's
the
on,
plan.
it's, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, approved plan.
right, you're not phasing, I mean, we didn't talk about
No.
phasing.
No, and that's
No.
one thing I need to
Yeah.
talk to you about in the decision itself, it's unclear, and I wanna make it very clear that, you know, that we can start the site work.
Well, that's what the decision is about, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I
I mean, we
I
can,
think
we
I-
can.
Well, that's
talk
not, I
about
didn't
it.
even see the decision, so.
Right,
I think I
right,
called
I
it
want the
over.
board,
One touch it tonight.
so they have their first draft tonight, and I'll send you a draft too.
I've
You-
got a draft and I marked it
You
up, I
have
just
it?
couldn't bring it,
Okay.
I didn't get
Okay.
back to the office in time.
Okay,
Are you running the?
yeah, so we can,
Are you marking up our decisions now?
I am.
So nice of you.
yeah, it was a little different than other decisions that we've done, so.
Are you gonna be, running the electric underground?
On the Plaza
house?
project?
Well, on the house,
I wasn't changing it, no.
so you're gonna keep it running overhead?
Yeah,
Where does it connect?
There's a
on the
pole
left
right-
side,
on
on
the
the,
side.
where that walkway shows.
So like where,
At that pole?
That pole.
Yeah, that pole there, yeah, and it comes straight in,
There's a transformer on the pole.
Makes it look authentic.
yeah.
That's a shame. Anyways,
Maybe when they're buried.
Well, maybe once it's,
Right,
the
I was
entrance
gonna
is
say-
cut in and they
Yeah,
really
I
make
was gonna
changes,
say,
but
that
he's
may
trying
be
to get
something-
someone in there quicker
That may
now
be something
to
that
help out.
changes, you know.
if you're putting
when
that
we-
driveway in though, couldn't you possibly just put a, conduit underneath?
Well,
I mean,
you could put a future, I mean, if he, wants to get it occupied, to bring in new electric service, which, in utility company,
You get
that's
a
gonna
trench permit.
take a while to do.
It could maybe possibly make it part of the,
Maybe,
Once you see the,
Well,
once you put the entrance in, I bet you'll probably, but I just, for now, I mean, I think
I
that's
mean,
a
you've
little
got
beyond
that
our
mast,
reach.
that
Yeah,
mast
you
that's
know.
sticking out of the corner of the house there.
Yeah.
You got-
Yeah.
you-
Once that'll all change when that's
Yeah.
down, and,
Yeah.
but I think for now, we can
Yeah,
let him help out who's trying to help out. and
just a
talk
friendly
about it.
suggestion,
I hear
that's
you.
all.
Your house will be more valuable when it's nice and clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the.
We weren't gonna clean it.
Okay,
I like the.
Charlie, we
the
keeping you
field
awake
look.
out there? Yeah.
so,
So, do we need, would you like, should we make a motion on this? Or just send a letter? Or so everybody's,
Can you just send a draft to us to approve
Oh.
first?
Yeah, of what? Of
We're talking about
yeah,
letters.
the
This,
re- yeah.
what you just
No.
said. Party type board, I'm gonna, you guys are late, it's.
And
I'm
what
gonna
was
see
the-
stuff I've never seen before.
What, yeah, what's the, dimension, you said 4 inches?
4 inches
5
to weather.
Yeah,
4 inches to weather.
not
Vinyl.
not five.
yes, final.
Well, I'm gonna
Not
put
five.
just 4 inch to weather.
I'll give you some.
Cementitious.
And
I'll give you some
Hardy,
wording.
is Hardy H-A-R-D-Y
You don't
or
want, you don't, I'll give you some, I'll give you
Okay,
some
good, good,
better
thank
wording
you,
on that.
thank you.
Composite
We
siding,
don't have to call it
Yeah.
manufacturing.
All right.
composite siding.
So, all right, so we don't need to take a vote. All right, so, well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Let's stay around talking some.
But it's
Charlie
5
was
to
about-
9 and we still have a big agenda to go and
alright, thank you.
we appreciate you coming in. George, thank you for, your efforts.
Thank you, guys.
Look, it's gonna be a fun project, great project for Easton, so. You want a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Sure. We are gonna take a 5-minute break, Easton. We'll be right back. Bob, is this like the zaniest meeting you've ever had?
It's a little.
They're usually not this long.
The last one was like 20
And,
minutes.
and it is.
I know. This is the longest one we've had in a while.
Yeah, it is.
Easton, cue the Mozart.
Another one that went really.
That was absolutely the longest. And Costco, KLK.
What we got here?
I thought you switched companies.
You don't need.
What's that?
I thought you were
That's
with
free.
FD now.
It's free.
What, we releasing lots? Usually he reads through all the details on the lot releases, doesn't he? I'm just joking, it's fine.
You can do that.
I don't think
I'm
we
sorry,
have.
everybody take me so seriously.
It's a late night.
All right.
There must be like 3 rooms.
Robert? Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, yes, this is Charlie, so you're,
Yeah.
you're in his seat.
I'll come back.
We all assume that everybody knows it, right?
Sure, you
We
feel
got a guy
very
over here
thankful
doing
right
some
now.
Yeah,
Got a guy over here
absolutely.
doing some good work.
That's right.
Big shoes to
absolutely.
fill.
All right, gentlemen, why are you here and what can we do for you?
Well, before I do anything, if you want to peruse what I just wrote down, it kind of sums it up, and then I'll answer any questions.
Or I can
Well,
summarize
Does
it.
it,
Go ahead.
do I, am I
Is
the
that what
only
this
one
is?
that has a copy?
No, I got it. Okay.
No.
All right.
Do you
Go
want
ahead,
me-
Steph.
I can-
And the-
Okay, so, Mr. Koska is here tonight requesting the release of 6 lots from the Covenant E, under which they're being encumbered at Barron Estates. And he is seeking release of lots 1, 2, 6, 23, 25, and 26. And the remaining lots will all be encumbered by the Covenant E. So we'd only be releasing those 6. Normally, at this point, the board has in the past held lots in lieu of surety. We are trying to move away from that. In this case, Mr. Koska has indicated he has buyers for the lots and wants to get moving forward on it. There's a substantial amount of work that's been done on the roadways, and he understands that when he comes back in the future for lot releases, we will require surety in the form of a performance bond or cash deposit
Okay,
for
that's,
the remaining cost of the road work.
that's tremendous, Stephanie, by what I just submitted tonight, because I haven't had a chance to come up with some numbers. When I ran numbers and everything like that, Kenny's kind of, this is amended by what I just submitted.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Amended as
Are you-
what? You
Are you
want
referring
different
to
lots?
this?
I'm referring to what was submitted.
It's pretty self-explanatory, it's more than equitable for the town.
Well, the town, but as I explained to Mr. Koska, the town cannot take the lots and sell them. It would be
Why was it done last year?
the value, because I've learned a lot in the last year.
Yeah, I'm not gonna name names, I'm not gonna go there. But when I was sitting on the board, there were other developers that came in here that will put up lots of surety that was accepted.
And that will not, and
That was very
going,
recent.
and going forward, that will not continue. I've talked with
Well,
town
I guess
council
let the
and,
board read this
and
over.
I've talked with town council, and town council agrees that, to get the project kick-started, get the sales going, that the board certainly can release a small number of lots.
We still gotta look
And
at
then at that point,
10.3.
and then at that point, to release subsequent lots, that, surety to cover the remainder of the road construction will be required.
So are we in agreement on the number of lots to be released now?
No.
I thought we were, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Kenny, do
Well, it
you?
looks like you're asking for 13 lots to be released. Is that
No,
right?
No, 11. Here's the way it worked, Wayne. Last year, 13 lots were released,
Okay, I'm sorry.
and 10 were held in bond. Okay? This year, we're asking only for 11 to be released, 2 less, and 5 more are being held in bond. So you're getting 2 less to be released and 5 more held in bond. So 11 released and 15 held in bond. And look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
I'm confused, because there's only, how many lots are there, 28, 26?
26.
26 lots, okay.
was looking to have 15
So when you're
held.
talking about this year and last year, okay, I'm confused. So how many lots have been released to date? 13?
Nothing.
No, well, you mean well, yeah, 13 were released, yes.
Okay. Because that's, so I'm looking at you, so February 16th, 2018, 13 lots were released from the covenant.
Right.
And 10 were held.
And then the definitive modification came in, okay? So what's gonna happen, there's gonna have to be a Form F on the remainder of those lots on the 23 lot subdivision.
Do the other board members have something I don't have? Because,
What Charlie handed me.
Oh, you don't have this thing?
no, I
Oh.
do not have
Okay.
what Mr.
Here, you
Melo was
can-
referencing. Do the
We'll
other
share.
board
Here.
members have that?
Yeah, I thought we all had it, sorry.
Okay,
Here,
do you
share.
have a copy for me?
I don't have copy A, which is the,
Here, you can use
Here,
that.
take mine.
That's fine.
take it off and then use the other one, Jeff.
That's okay, this is what I want. Okay.
So, sounds like there's a disagreement, you want more lots released than 6.
Yeah, but two less than last year. And we're putting 5 more up to show you than we had last year.
That's where I get lost with the last year.
Okay,
Because that all adds up to more than 20.
okay, now last year was a 23 lot subdivision,
Okay,
okay? 13 were released from bond, and 10 were held in surety. So
Okay.
13 and 10 is 23,
Sure.
okay? So now we go to a 26 lot subdivision.
yeah.
We're only looking for 11 to be released, which is gonna leave 15 in bond.
So not a total of
Okay.
21. You want to revise, so you want one more released.
No, now we're going to 26.
the 6 right
Now we're going to 26 lots, right? Okay, let me back up.
26
Is
lots.
anybody following this?
Yeah, I am
But
now.
so let me stop for a second. So you say 10 were released, but you said 10 were released last year.
13.
But he wants to
Oh.
revise that.
Right, no, but 13 were released.
Yep.
So you can sell them.
Well, but see, now we had the modified plan come in, the lot numbers all changed, so we have to,
Right, but now you only want 11 released.
but because that's all that's on the paper.
But not 11 in addition to the 13?
No. The,
This is a redo.
When was the release
This is a
revoked?
redo.
When
Okay.
was the release revoked? I don't get that.
it wasn't, see, what happened, Greg, originally, on the paved portion, on the original configuration, there was 13 lots. Now on the paved portion, there's 11 lots,
Okay.
okay? So we're looking to get the same lots released on the paved portion the same lots as we did last year.
Sure.
But there's 2 less this year, though,
Okay.
the way it was configured.
Because of the
And
rotation.
consequently, instead of 10 being held in bond now, there's gonna be 15 held in bond.
Right. But so, okay, so, but if they
And-
were
and
released
I
last
wanna-
year.
Yeah. Well, what
But this-
happened is they came back for a modification to the subdivision.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
when
that
they did
revoked
that,
the release?
That changed all the lot numbering.
No, but they were still released. Or-
But the lots that
The
they.
lot numbers all, Stephanie's right, the lot
The
numbers all
lot numbers
changed, Greg.
changed, so the lots that they want released.
So it's just different numbers.
What essentially is gonna have to
Right.
happen is there's gonna have to be a Form F based on that original covenant, Stephanie, releasing all those other ones. Then the new covenant went on, and then a
Hey, you're
Form
the
F.
lawyer.
I think I understand it now.
But, so Stephanie, so we agreed to release 13 lots last year, right? Is that correct? So I don't-
Yes, but so this is just a modification to that. We're
Right,
just
but,
modifying it.
so we were gonna change it to 11, but you only wanna release 6. So what changed? I still don't understand, if they're already released, when did they become not released? I understand numbers changed and.
Well, see,
What am I-
what
Well,
happened,
the lots that were, so technically 11, the number of lots were released. However, those lots don't exist they do exist if
So they
if
automatically
they wanted
were
to-
reneged.
Right. In essence,
Well,
if they're
since-
coming back and seeking a different set of releases than what's here, then in my mind, yeah, I mean,
What essentially is
otherwise
gonna have
they
to
can stay,
happen-
they can stay with these
But
number
that
of
doesn't
lots.
explain the difference
what
in the
essentially is
number
gonna
of
have to
lots.
happen is the covenant that was put up last year, okay? The lots that were not released from that covenant are gonna have to be released, okay? So they're all released from the prior covenant, then on this new covenant that went on, we need the lot releases on the new covenant.
That's correct, that a new covenant E should be executed, and we did it.
Well, you just
It
haven't
has,
done it.
according to
So,
the new,
okay, so anyway, so last year we agreed to release 13 lots, but this year there'd be like 11 because of the layout change, I understand that.
And the difference is,
so
No, just let me, so, but, okay, so we agreed to do that, right?
right,
Okay, so, but now for some
they
reason.
came in with a modification.
No, I understand that, but, because they lost a couple lots and so it's on, so they want 11 released, not 13, cause it's
Right.
only 11 lots there now. But we only want to allow 6, but my question is, just in the sense of fairness, I'm not trying to step on any toes or that, and this conversation
I
is
mean,
going on
Jeff,
that.
one thing, Greg.
Hold it, just, why do you only want us to release 6 and not, I'll call it the original 11, but it's, I know it was 13, so, just, cause I don't know.
Because I've had conversations, I've been enlightened on what, holding lots actually does for the town. The town, if you're holding lots and the roadway doesn't get completed and the town has to finish the road, you can't just take the lots and sell them. It's not a simple process of taking the lots and then selling them. What it
Right,
does
that's why
is
we've
it
been trying to get away from
encumbers
taking lots.
Right,
I
exactly.
understand that, sure.
So, the concern is, my concern is protecting the town,
Mhm.
making sure that we have enough surety to cover the road. So when you encumber them, that's incentive. Not releasing the lots, that's an incentive for the road to be completed, or for surety in the form of a performance bond or a cash or a three-party agreement that will cover the cost of the road if it doesn't get completed.
Now, I can see that going forward, Stephanie, on the unpaved portion. We're talking about the portion that was already paved, that was already released last year.
It's not finished. That road's not finished. You need to put the binder course on.
You mean the top
And we
course?
don't have yes, the top course.
That's, like I say, instead of last year, you held 10 lots in bond, now you're holding 15 lots in bond. And if you look at the numbers on that, I mean, the best thing that could happen to the town, it's not gonna happen, but the best thing that could happen to the town would be for us to default, and they get them for 34 grand a lot.
The
That'd be a
town
big-
can't take the lots and sell them. It's not that.
They gotta foreclose on them.
And it's a long, involved process. It's not to the benefit of the town, so.
Well, I mean, there's another way around that too, it'd be very easy. He'd be very happy to offer deed in lieu of, which is very acceptable. But the bottom line is, Greg, all we're trying to do was get what was released last year, and, and there's 5 more lots that are being held.
But it sounds like Stephanie's talked to town council and her,
Well, it's town council's opinion, but not according to 10.3, see? That's not bulletproof, you don't have to stand by that, that's an
no,
opinion.
The board does not have to release the lot, so 10.3, if the assurance is encumbering the lots, then the board does not have to release any of the lots until such time as the roads are complete and all the infrastructure's in. So I am just giving the board the best advice I can in the interest of, protecting the town from being in a position that if, and we don't expect this to happen, but if the developer was not able to finish the project, that the town had the proper mechanism to be able to complete the road.
I guess what you're saying, I mean, this is town council's opinion, okay? Going forward, fine. But from a legal perspective, the board would be doing nothing wrong by releasing these lots.
That
That's
is
just
up to
town council's
the,
opinion,
that is up to the board to,
not statute.
it is up to the board to decide.
Right.
So are we saying, I'm just curious, so Lee, are we saying that modifying the subdivision voided the release? That's what I'm just lost on how.
Well, they changed, because they changed the configuration in the lot numbers, a new, covenant E encumbering the lots was generated and recorded. So in essence, none of the lots have been released.
Yeah.
They were
So it's a
re-encumbered.
rewrite, It's a redo, yeah.
Okay, it wasn't recorded, so that, okay.
But there'll be,
Gotcha. So board members, what do you,
I mean, I'd like to understand the finances of what's being shown on
Pardon me?
exhibit. I'd like to understand what's being shown on Exhibit B and Exhibit C.
Okay,
So these,
Exhibit B was the construction cost estimate that was the denominator for what lots were gonna be released last year, okay? Exhibit C is the current cost estimate, which is about $24,215 less.
so
And
if
this
I
is to
could,
complete-
these are the town's documents, so
Okay.
as,
So what
When I-
what happens here is, right now, based on, from Exhibit A, which was $533,000, right now, it's down to, down
It
to.
was 657.
657, now it's
And
down
now
to
it's-
533,
yeah.
right. So now you're 124 to the good, and we're asking for 2 less lots to be released than were released last year, based on the 657. And on top of that, the town's getting 5 more lots to be held in bond than they were, last year was 10, now they're getting 15. So we're asking for 2 less lots to be released, less work to do on the road, and give 5 more lots over last year to be held in bond.
Why is it taking so long to get the road done in the first place?
Natural Heritage, if you're familiar with them, what we call salamander crosses, they have to go under the road, trying to get National Grid to give you the permits to get the underground in. It's like watching paint dry with those guys, and that's what the problems were.
And what's the plan? I mean, what's the time estimate for
We're
getting
gonna
it
pave
all?
in 2 weeks to
Yeah.
balance the road.
2 weeks?
Well, say on the outside a month, the back portion will be paved.
And so what's the rush in getting these released? Do you need?
Well, as soon as the bond is on, we can put houses on that area.
Why not just come back in 2 weeks?
Right.
But right now, we've got these front lots sold. I mean, that's,
You need
This-
the cash to get the construction.
no,
work
not
done.
necessarily, I'm taking care of that, but we can recoup some of our money, because we got these front lots that we're asking to be released, sold.
which lots, all 11 or the 6?
Well, some don't belong to us, I mean, are the ones who,
My question was which ones are sold, because I thought in talking to you, Ken,
Right.
I've
you
got a
had
cou-
6 lots that you have sold,
I've got a couple that Kenny didn't know
that you
about.
need released.
I've got a couple that Kenny didn't know about, customers I'm working with.
And then these, the reports that he, Mr. Melo references as B and C, these are our road cost estimates based on the work that's been done, so this is the remaining amount of cost to complete the road, so
It's gonna drop by like 75,000.
With also, with escalation built in for
In
You
the
3
have-
next 2 weeks.
with escalation built in for 3 years on top of that, so.
well, and understanding it costs the town more to actually construct the roads than it would for the contractor.
Sure.
So maybe this question is for Stephanie. I mean, what's the concern now? And I, believe me, I get collateral. And I get that it's not a simple process. I mean, there's gotta be some, incentive
Mhm.
built in to the process. Where did town council come down on that in terms of saying 6 was okay, but, perhaps 11 is not?
What town council said, recognizing that you want to kickstart, you want to help get the project going,
Sure.
help getting cash flowing in, that if the board wants to release some fraction of the total number of units, that certainly would be understandable. 6 is actually more than what he was thinking. He was thinking like 3 or 4.
Did he know the board had already released 13?
I don't think we talked about that.
Because that's my concern. I agree to Deb's point about town council. I certainly respect, what you're saying. But I'm like, okay, we approved, I guess I'm just a little troubled. We approved as a board releasing 13 lots. And there was actually a reduction of the subdivision after that. But now we don't want to release that, and if that wasn't communicated, I get a little.
We've gotten additional information in the meantime, but it certainly seems to me like you're still holding a pretty big amount of money for what we're talking about.
I can say this, Wayne, if the
But
back,
just hold on, let's let the board discuss it for a second. And I think I think maybe halfway through, after we've already released the project, isn't the time to kind of make a wholesale change in the process. Maybe we could do this, release the lots that they're asking for now, but then, you know, insist going forward that it's not a lot hold, that it's cash or bond. It just seems to me that that would be a fairer way to do it, because I don't perceive there being a tremendous amount of risk for the town in this, because I think that the quantity of lots far exceeds even given the factors that you pointed out, which are absolutely legitimate. There's still a lot of money in the lots that it wouldn't make sense for them to walk away from it.
one thing I wanted to say, Wayne, that the cost estimate you've got, just in the past like 3 weeks from when it was done, there's been a substantial more work done in the back. It's already for paving. The cost estimate was done again today. There'd be quite a bit more knocked off of it.
Stephanie, have you been out to the site?
I haven't, we contract with Amory. I mean, I've been out to the site, but I'm not doing the street inspections. And, but I have been in conversation with Mr. Koska. I know additional work has been done since these were done. He has communicated that he plans as soon as the weather warms up and the plants open and the rain stops, that he is going to do
The rain's never
I've
gonna
had
stop.
some
the next run.
challenges.
Yeah, right. So, you said you're paving in a couple weeks, is that, I haven't been up there for a while, so
That's
was
the
this put
second-
binder on the entire
whole
subdivision?
Say a month on the outside, Greg.
Right, but that, you're gonna bind the whole, all roads will be bind?
Yeah.
What, about halfway now, is that what it is?
Yeah, right at the intersection of the Cooper.
And again, what that will do is depending on the number of lots you release, they sell those, they start building when they come back again. At that point, you would expect that they will need to put up a performance bond or surety.
Yeah.
And it will be that much less because there's that much less work
Yeah,
outstanding.
because there has been, and it's always tricky, but there has been a movement, to Stephanie's point, to get away from taking lots. We got burnt pretty bad a few years back, not by you guys.
I know.
And you were here. So,
Yeah, right.
and the only thing that keeps me from saying, I absolutely hear where Stephanie's coming from, and I respect town and councils, but I'm just a little, we already approved 13. As I'm just a little, I'm a little troubled by if we suddenly do the 6, I'm like, and so, I mean, I don't need to rehash. I kind of agree with what Wayne's point.
I feel the same way. I feel like it's
Yeah.
not negotiating in good faith to
Then
kind
it
of
would kill
change
some
it.
sales on us too at the same time, just, money that we could use.
I don't know what you guys think.
I mean, I'm still just unclear as to what the difference is. If we all feel like there's adequate incentive here, releasing 11, and that there's not that much of a difference from the releasing of 6, then I agree with Wayne and Greg. I mean, let's just release them. We aren't going to change the process midstream. But if there is some, if there was a change based on, there was a change that was done, obviously, that caused this, if there was some change in the plan that required some sort of reevaluation of the incentives that we're all talking about, then I think that merits some discussion. I don't have a sense of that from this discussion.
There was a slight change, so there's fewer lots, but then they're asking for fewer lots to take back, right?
Yeah, I think
Essentially.
that to help you out, the road configuration, let's say it goes from station 0 to station 2300, whatever you may, the road configuration has never changed at all. It was just how the lots were, A&I, how they were configured, but the road configuration never changed.
In these lots, just so I'm clear, these lots are all valued at approximately the similar,
300,000.
pretty much uniformly,
Three and a
and
quarter.
the construction is all approximately the same,
Give or take.
give or take. All right. Then, yeah, I I tend to agree with Wayne and Greg. I don't see a big issue here. But I also recognize what Stephanie and town council are saying, and I agree that we should be thinking that way in the
And
future.
absolutely, going
Yeah,
forward,
I
I
agree.
think, right, I have I don't question it at all, we should do that. It's just,
Or I think if there were other mitigating factors to consider, for instance, if we thought we're heading into a severe economic downturn and those
Who
lots
knows?
aren't going
Isn't
to
it?
get sold, then it would be in our best, it would be in the interest to protect the town. But I think in the time frame that we're talking about, and in the foreseeable future, yeah, I don't really know that I think that the risk is really substantial. But, you know, that's always anyone's guess, really, so.
I'm gonna say I agree with releasing the 11 lots. I think based off the history of releasing 13 originally, and now we're gonna release the same lots, just different numbers. I think that makes sense.
waiting for our chairman to, comment.
No, I hate stuff like this, so it's always tricky.
Well, we'd
No,
always-
cause
we'd always love to
I
agree,
respect and I
but-
like everybody at the table and, but, we're all, but it is what
Want me
it
to
is.
make the motion?
No. So what I'm hearing is we're okay with releasing 11. And the list of those 11.
I'd have to get back to the other 5.
Is on the,
It's on, yeah.
on what was submitted to the board,
But that says 13.
which is that just,
That's the old one, right?
yeah, that's.
Yeah, where's your first
so
page?
what-
That's what was done last year.
No.
Oh, do you have it?
No, I'm looking.
Oh, you have
Yeah,
a
it's
summary?
here- It's here, it's
Oh,
on this
okay.
one here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
It's here.
When I come back in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
they even get the other one.
I'm sorry, I took
So
this
it's,
back.
alright, so for the record, it's lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26 that you're requesting be released, okay? And
So, let's see.
if we release those lots, we're not dealing with anything with a bond tonight, though. That's up the road. We're not
All right,
changing it.
so we have your signature page here, correct?
Okay.
I mean, if the board decides that, that's my recommendation.
Right, sure.
So we're just talking about this current release, we're not discussing future releases at this point.
No, the future goes under the regular conventional bond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything will be
Oh, yeah.
cash, whatever type of
Yeah,
bond
yeah,
from here on
yeah,
out,
yeah.
yeah. So I guess we just need a motion to release those lots, we don't need to talk any dollar amounts, right, Stephanie?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's 25 lots?
26.
26 lots, and we'll be releasing,
11.
11.
So you have 15.
I'll make a motion. A motion to release lots, do you need them, Stephanie, do you want me to read them out? Suzanne, rather, I'm sorry.
You can say it, though.
Yeah, go
All
ahead,
right, so
put it on the
release
record.
lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob did.
Bob,
Okay.
did you second?
I second.
Yeah, he seconded. Not used to the new guy's voice yet, huh?
Thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
And how
Very
many,
nice,
I
I'll tell you,
have
very good, nice to have an
14
attorney on the
left.
board. No, I'll tell you what,
that's what I
a
love.
lot of attorneys, they don't wanna
Says
ask the questions, they
15,
know it all.
26.
We asked some great questions, some very astute questions, and I think you're a great asset to the
6
board.
through 20.
Thank you very much.
Louisa?
Yeah,
6 through 20.
Yep. Big shoes to fill.
yeah, it would be 15 lots. yeah.
Not really,
Good
Yeah.
luck, good luck.
thank you.
All right, minutes.
We used to have an attorney on the board.
Good night, gentlemen.
I know you all studied these minutes at home.
Why do I have 2 copies? She local?
Yeah,
They
but
did that.
she moved recently to Florida,
Oh, she
but
did.
she might be like Snowbird,
I think I
Christine
paths with
Santor.
her at some
Yeah, she
point.
was on the board for.
Well,
No, 6 to 20.
if there's
15,
26 lots, and we're
I have
taking
her
away
list.
11,
20?
6 to 20 is 15.
There are 20.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. Yeah, it would have to be 15.
Yeah, look at 6, 7, 8. It works out. It's 20 because it's not 20 minus 6 is 14. It's
It's 26 total.
you know what I'm saying. 6
Yeah,
is
it's
included,
15
so
months.
it's yeah. It's sort of like if you have 3 fence posts.
We're missing one on here somewhere.
Okay, no, I'll check it. I know, I thought I counted 25.
Oh, really? I just counted 26.
I'll look
There's 26 lots, right?
There's
So,
26 lots.
and we're taking out 11, so.
Yeah, maybe I just did it right here.
No, you didn't. I don't think.
It's 6 lots. 6 to 20 is 14 lots.
It's 26.
26.
Yeah.
I mean 15 lots. 15 lots.
15
Well,
lots.
We're making our lives really
Oh, I'm
complicated.
I know.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Math is tough at this hour.
That's true.
I gotta go home and turn pens.
Can I make a motion to approve
getting
the
late.
minutes from Monday, April 22nd?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I actually did read them.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Boom, great. Where did my agenda go? There we go. Chair has nothing to report.
Thank God.
ZBA request for comments, 19-5, 35 Belmont Street, 5-car, 5-stall garage, if I recall.
Is this an easy one, or is this something we can't put it off, right? 'Cause they're meeting.
No, we'll blast it out.
Oh, they're meeting.
No, we can't,
tomorrow
because they're
night?
gonna meet, yeah.
Tomorrow night is missing.
Okay.
This variance is based on a hardship, the shape of the existing lot. So the garage has to go where it is because of the septic system. I get it.
The, one of the questions I had on that was the size of the garage and whether they were using it for residential or business.
It would have to be business, isn't it? 5 bays?
That's what it looks like.
You can't do.
Removing an existing garage and replacing it with a 5-bay garage. So I'm assuming it's just a garage, and it's in the business zone. The septic system is for the subject house, located between the existing house and the garage. The existing lot has an irregular shape. This is clearly seen by the existing. So the existing garage it's pre-existing non-conforming, so this is lessening the non-conformance. That's where it comes.
In one dimension,
Right.
I guess.
Well, in
It's close on the.
well, yeah, but 15 is not a non-conformance.
Right. Sure.
Or, well, is that a sideline or?
Back.
How's
It's real line, isn't it?
that's a
Yeah, rear yard says 40,
Yeah, it's-
40 to 50.
yeah.
So it's lessening the side, but it's. If it was a 3-bay garage, it would just fit in the existing garage. Okay.
So we can vote to support, vote to oppose, or take no action. What is the desire of the board?
So the existing garage is 1,600 16,005, no, that can't be right. Wait a second.
It's gotta be around.
What's the square footage of the existing garage? Do we know?
16,583, or no?
Did you see it?
Or does that say, no, that's the lot, right? Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah, that's where I started with.
It's gotta be around 1,400 based off the footprint of
Yeah.
the new garage.
I guess my
but
question
the
would be,
lot
is
is
the garage,
16
are they increasing the size of the garage?
It says it's
Yeah, they are.
approximately, they are, it's
Absolutely.
approximately
Yeah.
1,500 square feet.
Excuse me.
Is the existing, and the proposed is 1,800 square feet.
But on a
And they're increasing the
16,000 square foot
nonconformity
lot,
on
that's a
the
pretty,
rear.
Right.
Yeah.
that's a
And
pretty
they,
large.
And again, I think it's either a 2 or 3 car, and they're going to a 5 car.
Is this building an apartment house?
I
Apartment
think
building?
it's residential, that's a residential use. The other buildings, I think, the abutter, I believe are commercial.
It says on the print, the business and existing building 31 and industrial and existing building 2.
Yeah, see,
I'm
it's
not
an existing
comfortable with
multifamily
increasing a
house.
nonconformity while increasing the size of
Yeah.
a structure.
Yeah, they're like improving
It
the
just seems-
setbacks, but they're increasing the nonconformity. Yeah.
Right.
So does anybody care to make a motion? Or if you're still studying, that's fine.
And we don't know the context of this, like, wait, did you just say you saw it's zoned what?
You can see right here, this lot is zoned for business and this is zoned for industrial based off the.
Do you know
this
anything
print.
about
I
this?
don't know if
I don't.
that's
I know it's that white building,
Business.
or it's where those apartments are, it's all, but
Yeah.
business
all
if
those
this one is.
things that kind of shoot down the side there, right? Right after the industrial park.
Right,
Right, yeah, this
Right.
is the new,
this is,
this is the new dentist's office, right, so,
Oh yeah, where's Kemp Drive?
is that the?
isn't it?
No.
No, because the dentist's
No.
office has a street
This
next
is
to it on the
Raven
side.
Realty is down.
Yeah, 'cause but Plymouth
here
Drive is
on
the
one
industrial
side.
park,
Briarwood.
There's a construction, there's definitely
Yeah, it's
construction.
This is right, you know that white,
That's-
remember there used to be a
Right.
vintage shop?
Which is
and a
Raven,
apartment
it's the
building
same
behind it?
thing.
Right,
This is to the
right,
right
right.
of that.
Isn't there like a,
Yeah, no, it's fine, I
Yeah.
just,
There's something there,
like
yeah.
a little, yeah, like
Yeah.
a little cape that is a business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's,
it's not really like in a, it isn't a very business
yeah, it's in a
commercial.
business area,
Right.
I agree, but
But still, yeah, generally, moving forward, you never
Counselor, what do you
allow
say?
And it just.
increasing
I mean, it's
not,
not-
not
it's
Why,
outside
why
of
did
the
they send this
commercial
over to
district.
us?
It is a-
Oh, because we all requests for variances and special permits that go to ZBA come to us for comment.
like just to give them like some guidance.
Oh, this
or
was a variance on.
This is this is a
the
variance,
ZBA will
cause it's,
voting on tomorrow.
and it's making a non-conformance more non-conforming, right? It depends. how
But
you
it's
measure
not,
it.
I thought you just said it was a variance on a special permit?
No, it's variance or special permits.
Oh,
They do
all right.
Come to us.
Oh, so, okay.
for request for comment.
yeah, that's Briarwood Realty, okay.
I mean,
This is the building right there, right?
Yeah, I don't,
Oh,
What is the?
In fact,
I think it's a poor precedent to set, to allow for,
yeah, give me a street view on that, if you don't mind.
yeah, so this Briarwood,
Yeah,
that's
so go
that's
up
the
the
next
street.
one, yeah.
So is it is that just a single family
It
house?
looks like,
Is it apartment?
looks like
Business?
yeah,
residential.
see, I think
Well, I
this,
don't know, it's
this
3
one I
meters,
think
it's
says
apartment.
Kemp or something.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
No, that's a little further up.
Yeah,
So it's the
in
garage
back
that's
end.
behind the house.
But there
back
are
of this one.
businesses, there's like a
Yes,
Peroni owns it, and there, which is all part of the Briarwood.
Yeah, so you're gonna see that,
that, it's that building right there.
right.
There seems to be like a contractor business that runs out of here.
I mean, to answer your question, Greg,
Yeah.
as a lawyer, I'm not terribly convinced by this argument.
Yeah.
I mean,
You think hardship was a bit of a stretch?
Yes,
I mean, I've seen these things get shot down in court with some frequency.
So feel free to make a motion.
yeah, I would make a motion to not recommend the application for variance. based on the increased nonconformity at the rear.
I'll second.
There's a building they wanna take down.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion not to recommend, say aye, or raise their hand.
Okay.
I've never said say aye before, have I? Well, that's,
I know we can
Universe?
buy
Yeah,
a
all the
house
time.
today.
It's getting late.
Unanimous?
It's getting late, yeah.
I've been up since 2 in the morning.
Can I just, who seconded?
Oh, that was me again.
Bob's quick on the seconding, if you haven't noticed.
All right. So, all right, I think, we have to sign some stuff, but other than that,
Yes.
Bob, I promise all the meetings won't be this long. This is a long one.
This is once in a while.
Not long. I thought we were gonna be a quick night. I was gonna buy you a beer.
We have had
Well, I
some
told
late
my
nights.
wife I might be home for bedtime for the
Yeah.
girls. It did not happen.
Well, if they
That was
watch, I
at
hope they
8.
watch the late night TV.
Exactly.
Wanna bring us home?
Do it again.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Easton. Thank you, ECAT.